Okay, members, thank you. And a fáilte romh a lig. All very welcome to this morning's meeting. We do have a quorum. I now call the meeting to order and welcome all of you to fáilte romh a lig to the 73rd meeting of the Committee for Communities. Can I remind anyone in the public gallery that mobile phones must be turned off. Mobile devices can, however, be used through a Wi-Fi connection, and all devices should be muted. Password details are available in the gallery for anyone wanting to connect to Assembly's Wi-Fi network, and no recordings or photographs may be taken. Can I also remind members about the protocols regarding the use of electronic devices? Please switch all mobile devices to airplane mode and activate Wi-Fi connections. Please use tablet devices discreetly in a way which does not interfere with proceedings, and be aware of the cameras when using your tablet device. I would also remind members about the sensitivity of the microphones. And for members joining via Zoom today, and that's Mark Durkin and Cttee Mason, MLAs, joining by Zoom today, can I ask members to be mindful of whether your camera is able to pick up any information or details in the background that you may wish to consider. So, thank you, members. Moving on to agenda item 1 then, declaration of interests. Do members have any interests they wish to declare in relation to today's agenda? No, thank you, members. Moving on to apologies then. Are members aware of any apologies? Clerk? No. No. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3, chairperson's business. Members, you'll be aware of the statement the Minister delivered on Monday in plenary regarding the review carried out by the Benefit, Fraud and Error Task and Finish Group. A copy of the statement can be found in correspondence under item 7.14 for your considerations. I would like to advise members about the management of an amendment to today's agenda item. An SL1 was received from the department on Tuesday AM after members' pack had been issued on Monday, and as time is of the essence, the team then added it to the agenda and papers were circulated in your table pack. Unfortunately, the online committee diary system will not allow agenda items to be amended after the issue of the main pack. Therefore, the SL1 papers are now found at agenda item 12 of the table papers, but will be considered as agenda item 8 today. So I'll try to keep you on the right page numbers, etc. for that when we get to that length. Agenda item 4 is the draft minutes. Our members, and we're speaking about the minutes now from the 5th of February. They're contained at page 7. Do members have any edits or amendments to the draft minutes? Are members then otherwise content to agree the minutes of 5th of February as drafted? Are members agreed? Yeah, thank you. Okay, members, agenda item 5, rescission of committee decision on proposed correspondence. You will recall we had agreed our meeting on the 29th of January to write to the Secretary of State following the report of the previous Commissioner for Standards to seek an opinion under Section 36 of the NI Act in relation to whether the Assembly ought to consider a resolution. We then subsequently decided to seek legal advice in relation to our decision during that meeting. At the conclusion of last week's meeting, we received legal advice from the Assembly's Head of Legal Services in relation to the processes which would underpin writing to the Secretary of State. Following the advice received last week, the committee decided to rescind that decision. Can I therefore ask for the record, are members agreed the decision we made to write to SOS is formally rescinded? Are members agreed? Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, Chair. I appreciate the update on this issue, and given that we did spend 15 minutes talking about this on the 29th of January meeting before we voted, and it was a very confused place, I have to say, and I did watch it back to refresh myself, but the first 5 minutes we were talking around the houses, it really was based on Kelly's proposal to write to Secretary of State on the back of the allegation that the committee does not scrutinise. Then it changed round after a lot of clarity, and Andy asked for clarity around that too, to say it was in relation to the breach. I do welcome that we've had the legal advice, but I would propose that we do, of course, formally rescind what was an embarrassing decision taken on the 29th of January. And I would propose also that we, furthermore, write to the Minister and apologise to him for attempting to use the Northern Ireland Act in an inappropriate way against him.
Okay, members, any thoughts on that? Go ahead, Melissa.
Sorry, Chair, to interrupt. Sorry, Pam. Could I get some IT support, Chair? Just for some reason this isn't opening up my pack here.
Yeah, I wonder could we get that checked out from Melissa there. So any thoughts then on Pam's proposal, members? Go ahead, Andy.
Sure, I suppose, that maybe be useful to have engagement with the Minister. Obviously, there were things that the Minister highlighted during a session that colleagues were clearly unhappy about. There were aspects, I personally don't feel it was directed at me, but others may feel it was directed at them around us not being a scrutiny committee. There is the aspect around the letter writing, and we did discuss that. So certainly there may well be a feeling across the committee that relationships with the Minister aren't as good as they ought to be. So I don't know if there's something we can do in and around that, an engagement session with the Minister. I know the cut and thrust of politics, it often happens, but fundamentally the people out there on the ground want us all to be working together for the betterment of them, whether it be housing or the wide range of areas that this department covers.
Thanks, Andy. Kathy?
Thanks, Chair. I'm a bit confused and would actually like a wee bit of clarity. Was there a proposal there that we apologise to the Minister?
Yep, that was the
Is that
proposal.
Okay, well, my view on that, I wouldn't be agreeing with that. My view would be that we are a scrutiny committee. Kelly was well entitled to bring forward a proposal to be decided upon by the committee. It was explored further, as is well entitled to do so, and a different decision was come to. I don't think we have anything that we should be apologising for. This is what our role is, to scrutinise the department, and the Minister is part of that.
Thank you, Kathy. Sian?
Yeah, I just feel that bringing up the legislation, I think for me, illuminated the fact that we have very little powers when there are issues with ministerial decisions or ministerial actions. The confusion for me arose from the fact that there's very little accountability. So when you have to go back to legislation like the Act, I think that's where, for me, the issue lay. And I would agree with the Vice Chair. I don't think that we have anything to apologise for. I believe that the committee was well within its rights to express, or members of the committee were well within their rights to express their disappointment and their frustration with the actions of the Minister, particularly in light of a Standards Commissioner's report that showed 2 breaches of the ministerial code.
Yeah, any other thoughts, members? So I actually, I think it is absolutely legitimate for this committee to explore a range of issues and take legal advice on them, and then reflect and react to the legal advice that we receive. I'm just struck, I have to say, by the fact that, to me, the Minister is not the victim here. We've subsequently, since we met, the Assembly has expressed their concerns very clearly around this. So I don't believe we have anything to apologise for at all, nor will I apologise, nor do I think the committee should apologise for applying scrutiny to the Minister. So I understand, Pam, the Minister is from your party, but as a committee we're fully entitled to explore a range of issues and to take our decisions based on the information we're receiving. Go ahead.
Chair, it's just to look, I appreciate and I'm very grateful that the legal advice did come to us last week. But I do think that this committee pushed ahead with a proposal, and there were other options to take it away and consider it, bring it back. In fact, that was your option at one stage too. But the committee decided to push ahead with the vote and agreed to do this, which is why we're now in this position now where we're rescinding a decision. In my time in this Assembly, I don't think I've ever sat in a committee who have had to rescind a decision that they've made. I think it was such a serious accusation based on the legal advice. It was wholly inappropriate to use this, to attempt to use this power in that fashion. The legal advice made it very clear that the proposal would have been an improper use. And in fact, this power is more in line with dealing with terrorism than tweeting. And I just think it's a huge insult to the Minister, and I do think we do owe the Minister an apology for attempting to use it in that fashion. And I think it all played out with way too much haste, with much confusion, and it clearly has led to rescinding this decision, which I agree with. But I do think it was.
Okay. Well, listen.
Badly done on the day,
Yeah.
and I think we should make it right.
So your point's well on the record, Pam. I don't get a sense from the committee that there is agreement for that course of action. What is your wording that you're seeking the view of the committee on?
So I would propose that we do rescind the decision made on the 29th to write to the Secretary of State, and that we apologise to the Minister for attempting to use the Northern Ireland Act in an inappropriate way against him.
So there's two parts to it. Rescinding the decision. I want to check committee members content to rescind the decision.
Well, I was
Well,
making
I'm
that
coming back to.
proposal.
Well, we are rescinding the decision, so that's a separate proposal. That's on the agenda. Your proposal is adding to that, so that's why I'm taking it in two parts. So we are content to rescind the decision. I don't get a sense, but I'm going to check members if there's any if the committee wish to write to the Minister. No, I don't get a sense.
I would second Pam's proposal.
Do you want to put it to a vote?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to vote, members. So, Clerk, can you advise on, do we take the counter proposal first, that we don't, or do we need a counter proposal, or do we vote on the proposal?
If there's an amendment to the wording, first of all, can we confirm the wording of the proposal? That the committee write to the Minister?
Well, I would have preferred that we were saying that we agree to rescind the decision of the 29th of January, and that we write to the Minister to apologise for attempting to use the Northern Ireland Act in an inappropriate way against him.
The committee agreed to write to rescind the decision at last week's meeting. That agreement has already been made, and that's what made it be added to the agenda for this week. The agreement was taken last week for it to be agended for this week, so that agreement already exists.
Okay, then I could amend the proposal then to say that we write to the Minister to apologise.
The committee write to the Minister to apologise
For attempting to use the Northern Ireland Act in an inappropriate way against him.
attempting to use. So what the committee agreed that day was that they would write to the Secretary of State to seek an opinion.
So based on the legal advice that we received, it would have been an inappropriate use of that legislation to write to the Secretary of State.
So
We already decided that, did we not?
already
With the
decided.
legal advice, that was.
Well, there were two decisions taken the previous week. One was to write to the Secretary of State, but then there was a subsequent decision which was minuted, which was to seek legal advice on how the processes that underpin that, and that no letter would issue until that legal advice had been taken. So the rescission of the decision is for the letter now. It's just an action sitting in minutes that will never be actioned, and then the procedural advice is that ought to be rescinded.
And the committee has agreed this morning that that be rescinded.
I think
The committee agreed to agenda that last week for deciding today, and they have to be taken one meeting apart. So today is the finishing of that loop.
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Clerk. I do think, given this whole issue has been played out in public in this committee, that I do think it is right that we make it right. I do think we should be apologising for.
So if I can just confirm that the committee, the wording of the proposal, and then the chair can put that to the vote. The wording of the proposal is that the committee write to the Minister to apologise for attempting to use the NI Act. Haven't got the end of it,
Yep.
sorry.
Inappropriately against him.
Inappropriately against him. Against him. You want
Okay,
to put that to
members.
the vote?
So it seems the committee is unable to reach a consensus position in relation to this matter. Therefore, I propose to put the question to a vote. The question is that the proposal that the committee write to the Minister to apologise for attempting to use the NI Act inappropriately against him. All those in favour?
3, 4.
All those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against. 3, 4, 6 against. Proposal falls.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, moving on to matters arising. And members, you've been provided with a summary table of matters arising at page 22. We have received a significant number of responses from the department on a few important matters, with a total of 27 items in the main pack. Rather than drawing out individual items, given these are all in their own sense important issues, today I intend to take them one at a time today, seeking committee views and comments or follow-up actions. So, firstly there, item 6.2 is a response from the clerk to the Committee for Infrastructure regarding that committee's substantial engagement with the Construction Employers Federation on issues pertaining to wastewater infrastructure. It offers further detail if members have any queries. So, Cathy, I have an indication from the Deputy Chair. Go ahead, Cathy, please.
Might have been for the last item. I think I caught it late.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry.
Okay. So, any issues in relation to that item, members? Can I check with you, please? Yes, Kelly.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. And matters arising for this one. There is a significant difficulty here, and later on in the information about the financial and where we are with new starts, we all know that there's an issue with house building and getting enough house building to meet needs here in Northern Ireland, whether that's finances, issues with Northern Ireland Water. I don't know, would it be worth our while at this stage, and I'm just asking the question, to write to I suppose the Minister for Communities in the first instance for his comments on that report, and I'm sure he agrees with quite a lot that's already in there, but if he can outline his proposals as what can be brought forward for solutions and what he's doing with other ministers to get solutions to remove this, plug this, whatever's holding things up.
Yeah, members agreed.
I think, to be honest, we all need to sort of live within our means now, and it's what's proactively happening as the minister's the lead on this with the other ministers to move this forward.
Yeah, Clerk, are you content with it?
Can I confirm that we're writing to the Minister for Communities seeking his comments on the CEF report? Okay.
Okay, members
And
content.
opportunities to work with other ministers?
Come up with the solutions, because it's holding back his housing supply strategy.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes, go
can
ahead.
I just expand on that? And in our role of supporting the minister, clearly, the capital budget allocated to the department is insufficient to be able to deal with the scale of housing need. And maybe if we can expand on Kelly's point to write the FMDFM and the finance minister to encourage additional capital investment for the house building, because quite clearly we're not going to be able to meet the programme for government targets, and we're not going to be able to meet the expectations of the general public under the current capital budget allocations.
So what is it you're suggesting to add to it, Andy?
To encourage finance and the wider executive to recognise that we need increased investment in social and affordable housing.
Members content with that?
Yeah. Chair, could we add in?
Yeah, there might be a further opportunity for that deeper into the agenda just as well, Andy.
Yep.
Chair, sorry,
Go ahead.
could we also pick up on Kelly's point there, right, to the Minister of DFA to see what her opinion would be, because it's across departments. It's not just our committee, find out where everybody's at.
Yep.
You'd be happy enough with that?
That's why I was thinking FMDFM, so it can cascade down through the wider executive, because it's not a one department issue.
Yep, content with that. Members content?
Yep.
Yep.
So it's the executive rather than just the Minister for Communities. So the Minister for Communities gets a letter, but it's copied to the wider executive, or a separate letter to the wider executive.
What's your proposal, Andy?
I have no issues if you want to send the similar letter copied to the executive, but the key point that's going to the executive is the need for increased investment, and I think it's under our support role to the department and to the minister. That's where we're coming in and saying, currently the current approach to social and affordable housing isn't sustainable and isn't going to deliver anywhere near the required level of housing. So we would encourage increased support for an increased number of units to be built.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, members. Yep, great. 6.3, members, is a response from the Department regarding the rate support grant and the review of public administration. The Department has highlighted that discretionary funding is not normally ring-fenced, and any potential to move to ring-fence the rate support grant may require legislative amendment. The Minister will reconsider this once the 3-year budget exercise has been completed, but in the meantime he has bid for additional resources for the rate support grant. Any members content to note or any comment? Yeah,
it's just on that review of public administration. I have asked several times if there was going to be a review whenever the super councils hit their 10-year anniversary, and there wasn't going to be. But I noticed here that there was a recommendation that the department should monitor and report on efficiency savings gained as a result of the reduction, and report on it. If we can get a copy of that report or find out where that report is,
yeah, that would
be
be
useful.
A review of that part of it at least, which would be useful. So
good.
yeah, can we seek if that report's available?
The Department from Communities, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, members, content with that then, as noted, as per the memo, that we'll take that additional action. 6.4 then is the DFC from the department regarding members' queries relating to the departmental logo. Members, any comments you wish to raise in relation to that? Kathy?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was extremely disappointed whenever I seen this response again. I just think it further highlights that this minister doesn't like any scrutiny, and how he gets around that is deflection. And it's very clear that this letter is just more deflection again, and we've got absolutely no information that we asked for. So I'd be asking that we ask these questions again, or if they're not going to answer the questions, then we ask officials to come in front of us to be able to ask them in person.
Members content with that?
No,
Go ahead,
Chair.
Pam.
No.
Okay, members generally content that we will seek a briefing on this issue?
Can I come in on this?
Yeah.
And I would like clarity on what answers haven't been received. What are we specifically saying we need to ask again?
Well, I know one of the things that struck me was that the heavily redacted correspondence we received said that the minister was presented with a number of options. I'm not clear what those options were or what the decision making was around them. So that's one issue that I'd certainly like further information on.
So, I thought the minister said that it was only the issues that weren't in relation to that were redacted.
Well, we don't know what there's mention of. We don't know what's redacted because it's redacted. We also don't know what the decision-making process is. We still have no information on the cost.
The minister stated in that meeting what was redacted and why it was redacted. He said it was matters that didn't relate to the topic in which we were asking questions on.
Well, that still leaves a question for me as to what the options that were presented.
Is that a different question then? As opposed
What's
to,
members' thoughts?
I think what we're saying is that he hasn't answered the questions. As far as I can see here, he's saying he has answered the questions. So I'm asking for clarity what questions
We've
were not
repeatedly asked what the costs were and we haven't got an answer to that.
answered. The answer's there.
We're not getting that in correspondence.
But the answer's there. As outlined in the previous correspondence, the review did not incur costs.
I think it's extremely the lack of information here has been quite stark, I have to say.
I don't understand, because it's saying here you're asking what the costs were and the minister's saying there were no costs.
Kathy, go ahead.
Sure, the crux of the matter is that we've asked questions around this, and none of us, I don't believe, are any the wiser after asking the questions. So it's clear that they're not going to answer questions that are given to in writing. So if we need officials in front of us, then that's where we need to go to. It's irrelevant as to what we've asked for information and we've got none. We're no further forward.
Sure, we do have the information. Colleagues may not be happy with the information, but the information, so if we can get a proposal as to what the information that we're requesting that we haven't received, I'm content with that. But as far as I can see, Pam has highlighted the cost aspect on the minutes. The department has addressed that the redacted aspects relate to matters not within scope of our request.
Okay, well, for now, as a compromise, for now, I'd be happy to suggest that we seek what options were put to the Minister, the full range of options. And on foot of that, then we can decide as to where we take it. But there is clearly a lack of information, I have to say, and that's one thing that remains outstanding. So, Sian.
Yeah, Chair, I am unhappy that Irish language and the Ulster Scots have been diminished by the department that has remit for languages. I don't really know that I need a briefing at this moment in time. I think that we have so much that, and we've talked about our time limits, but I am disappointed. And even when the Minister met with the two commissioners, when it says in some of the documentation that we've received that the trilingual logo will be used when it's pertinent to the subject, and then you see the photos of when the Minister's meeting with both the Commissioner Lee Reynolds and Commissioner Paul Deeds, and the tri-language logo isn't there. For me, that's not using that opportunity to actually promote the language. But I'd be happy to even look and see. I would support looking and seeing what options are put forward, but I don't know at this moment in time whether I would support getting officials in for a briefing just because of the time pressure that we're under.
Okay, and that's I suppose the issue around what criteria is used to assess when the logos are used remains unclear. So maybe we could take further information on that.
When opportunities are there to promote a really key part of the language of the department being language, Ulster Scots and Irish, then I think it's a missed opportunity. So it would be good to know the criteria if the options are there, and we're now going with a single language logo, but we're told that potentially when it relates to the subject matter, the trilingual logo is used, and then it's not in the most public way. That's a disappointment for me.
Okay, so members, we can we seek those pieces of further information?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, members. 6.5 then is the Local Growth Fund and Treasury Communications. Do members have any comments in relation to that item on the agenda? I suppose just it remains a huge concern. I'm picking up actually doing probably meetings over the next couple of weeks with some of the groups that are being impacted with this. There's clearly a direct consequence of Brexit, and I think that people need to understand that is the situation, and that's the case. Redundancies are out there, and this is going to be devastating in that sector. There doesn't appear to be a lot of progress being made, and it's very, very worrying. But that'll be my thoughts on it. Mark?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, share your concerns and everyone's concerns, and welcome the response from the Finance Minister. Welcome the joint executive statement that went out last month. But we also need to know what's Plan B. It's great, and we'll support any attempts to get UK government to change their mind or change the profiling of this, or they allocate more money to resource to support those groups that do so much to support so many in our society. But if that doesn't come through, what's the executive's proposals? How are they going to try and fill that gap?
Yep. Members content?
Yeah.
Is there was there an action there to write to somebody, or is that a statement?
Yeah,
I propose that if we could just write back and say thanks for the response, we wish you well and support your endeavours, but is there a plan B?
Okay.
and are there any
Finance Minister specifically?
Yes.
Yeah.
and are there ongoing discussions with the British government around replacing the funding as had been promised?
Oh yeah, well, I think that's a given. We're told of that, if not in this correspondence, the one from the Communities Minister, that the negotiations are ongoing.
Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, Chair, I was just going to say, I would second Mark's proposal there, and it is, in that last paragraph from John O'Dowd, he's saying he's going to persist with the British government on this, but I would support the proposal.
Yep. Go ahead, Kelly.
I agree with what has been said so far, but I would like a bit more from communities on the reaction to this. I appreciate it's not communities funded, it's not the executive's funding that's causing this issue. It is an outside body. It's Treasury, Westminster, that have brought this funding forward, albeit that communities had tried very hard for it to be Northern Irelandised. But the question to communities is, what impact assessment is being done of the loss of services as a result of the Local Growth Fund, and what pressure does that put on the access to employment programmes that the Minister is bringing forward, because quite a number of the groups support people with disabilities or mental health issues, lots of people out there who are quite vulnerable. If that type of support by the community and voluntary sector is not able to be provided or does not receive money through the Local Growth Fund, doesn't even meet the criteria of it, we're left in a situation then where there has been no other alternative application available currently through communities, but there still will be a pressure on the figures that we have of the number of people who are not in employment. So it's what impact assessment or what consideration is communities doing? I know that they know how many people in this sector will be made unemployed, but it's the impact to their objectives that may be harmed. And it would be good to get sort of a feedback on that. They're obviously they know about this. They've been looking at this, but it's what will the reverberation be? Does that have to mean a reprofiling of some of the work programmes for next year?
Yep, Pam.
And Chair, I have no objection to that either. I'm just wondering, should that also go to the executive as a whole as well, given the impact that this will have across the board on all services and the dependence that government has on.
Well, are you saying that the first proposal should go to the executive office? Is that one there specifically for communities, is my understanding?
A specific one on
that's
that
very specific on
the
outcome, the outworking of that in
well,
communities.
I think both for now, but I'm further again, perhaps either maybe it should go to also to the executive, or certainly be copied to the executive. Maybe both pieces of correspondence.
Chair, I would agree, because it's going to come down to finance.
No. So Kelly's now. Just let me understand this a wee bit. Kelly is seeking as well. We are writing to finance and the executive office on that on the concern. Kelly's asking for an assessment from communities of the impact on their job start programmes, yes, on their employability programmes. That's specific to communities. I don't think there's any benefit in that letter going to the executive or at this point.
Copied to the executive?
When the results come back, it may be worth us flagging. When there's, but I think it's a specific impact. Yeah. We know the impact on the redundancies, but what's the knock-on impact on the people who use those services? Yeah. And that then leading into the impact on the department's employment schemes and employability.
Wider DSE objectives is what I've noted here, yeah.
Melissa?
And just reflecting the fear that there is within communities at the present time because of the reduction in funding and the likes of it, it would be remiss of me not to point out that this again is one of the results of Brexit at the end of the day. And that's effectively what it is, that we're dealing with the consequences of Brexit, a decision taken by a British government that at the end of the day hadn't considered, we'll say, how it is that they're going to replace funding that we previously would have received from Europe to the people here in the north of Ireland.
Yeah. Are you content with?
Yes.
If I may, just further to Kelly's point and Pam's, is, that wider contingency planning piece is where I think the whole executive should be looped in on. If this funding isn't changed and the current trajectory around capital to resource, quite clearly the executive and the finance minister are going to have to deliberate on what contingency measures they can put in place. So I'd be supportive of what Pam's requesting around just that advanced sort of engagement with finance to say, the executive is going to have to look at a contingency here if the UK government doesn't change its approach. Personally, I think, and I've pressed for this, is the UK government, if they don't want to change course, should give the money to the executive. I know some people would argue it's not as simplistic as that, but give it to the executive with the ability to be flexible, because fundamentally the executive and the departments here know how the money's needed.
Yeah, so, well, given, as has been pointed out, there's an ongoing discussion. I don't know if now's the time around contingency fund. I think raising the concerns very clearly is relevant. But I would certainly still hope that there will be a realisation from Treasury that this does need to be addressed substantively by them. To me, that's that's where it really
Of course,
rests.
it needs to be addressed by Treasury, and that would be the fundamental approach that we would all want to see. But we can't leave it to 11th hour for contingency planning, and I'd certainly hope that the executive as a whole is looking at that contingency if the UK government don't change their approach. We heard from the Minister during his briefing session that the message doesn't appear to be landing with the UK government. So I hope it will, and I hope they will change their course, because we've heard quite clearly from the organisations on the ground and many of those who receive support through these schemes of the devastating impact that it will have.
Okay, so are members content with those? Clerk, are you content
Yep,
with the
so-
content of the letter?
Yeah, there's a letter to the executive about the Plan B and wider approach to contingency should funding not be made available. A specific letter to the Finance Minister as a response to this, and a letter to the DFC about the wider impact assessments and in terms of the loss of the funds to Job Start programmes and similar community-based programmes and the wider DFC objectives.
Yep. Members content? Yes. Thank you. Item 6.6 is a response from the Department regarding discretionary housing payments over the last 5 years. The Department and the Housing Executive have stated that they can provide an informal information session to members on DHPs if they wish. Would members wish to schedule a briefing? Yep, thank you. Go ahead, Kelly.
Chair, can I just say on this, this is the sort of evidence that we write to the department to get information on. This gives us the absolute proof that when LHA is not frozen, how much of a benefit it has for people on the ground that actually can have affordable rents. So no, I'm very grateful for the information that has been provided, and I would like to have a discussion with the Housing Executive in particular. I know they're having a change of personnel there, but about how long, for instance, we see there that the number of customers, 7,336 in 24-25 were receiving easements. That lasts for 2 years. How many of those are already coming up to their end of their 2 years? It's how we plan ahead for this.
Yep. So, members content we schedule an informal briefing on that? Thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Item 6.7 then is a response from the Department regarding community-led housing models. The communication specifically covers information requested on financial transaction capital, asset transfer and the buyback policy. Members, any comments in relation to that item? Members are otherwise content, thank you. Item 6.8 is a response from the Department regarding the definition of priority need. Timeline for language strategy, CDWD programmes and the Department's plan to gather child poverty action information from other departments. Do members have any comments in relation to item 6.8 or anything they wish to highlight? Kelly?
Just to ask, it's on that page 97, 97, I'm looking at it wrong, 85 and 86. It's that paragraph that crosses the 2 pages, that any cross-government definition of priority need for accommodation need to align and be underpinned by the definition set out in Article 5 of the Housing Northern Ireland Order. 1988, it's a while ago. I'm just wondering if we can ask if there's any intention to review that in light of some of the other work that's being done. For instance, the race relations that's coming out of TEO. There's things there that, for instance, we've been asked about veterans. So it's just if there's something there, is there a review intended? Now, I'm not saying that the groups that are currently in that list are wrong, but we know that the Housing Executive are reviewing allocations and those priorities. Is there an opportunity then to look at these to see if we're missing anybody? Because it says there at the bottom line of that paragraph on 86, legislation has never categorised applicants who transition through the asylum system as having a priority need solely on this basis. So, we know that our Housing Executive has been left in some cases with less than 7 days to allocate a house when someone's given leave to remain and they're coming out of hotels or wherever they're being kept by the Home Office. So is there, it's just to ask the Department for Communities, is there an opportunity or are they considering a review of Article 5 of the Northern Ireland Housing Order in order to encompass the diversity and needs of Northern Ireland today as opposed to in 1988?
Yeah. Members content? We seek that information. Yeah. Thanks very much. Item 6.9 then is a response from the Department regarding the Community Infrastructure Fund and addressing members' queries around what was the substantial evidence provided to Commercial Services Branch which underpinned the advice that a competitive scheme was not required. The Department advises that selecting Cooperation Ireland as the IFB to administer this scheme was made by the NICIF project team. The Department has also stated that it considers more than direct financial cost when considering value for money. Members content or any questions in relation to it? Yep. 6.10 is a response from the Department relating to retrofitting and future-proofing cross-departmental strategy. The Department has said it is working with DFE, DOF and DAERA officials, and a composite response will be provided to the committee as soon as possible. Members content with that? Yeah, thank you. Item 6.11 is a response from the Department for Infrastructure to the committee's query on the application process for dropped curbs and the criteria applied to applications. Members, any comment or content with that? Content, thank you. 6.12 is a response from the Department regarding help with health costs for universal credit claimants and how claimants can demonstrate their entitlement to receive help. Do members have any comments in relation to that one? Kelly?
At one stage, Chair, we were told that we would have a demonstration of what a portal looks like for universal credit, so we could see how these messages are flashed up to people who are in receipt. Can I just ask if we can get an update on that, when that might be possible? I know they talked about, even if it's an informal session, that we can go down to the department and they can sit with us with the computer and let us see that. It would be useful to see, because I still have people coming to me saying, how do I make the application, to get help with health costs?
Yep, Sean?
I think a lot of these policy changes, when they do occur, they rely on people being digitally literate, and for quite a few people that would fall into this category, that's actually the most vulnerable or the least kind of digitally literate of that cohort. And I think that that's where some of the confusion lies. There will be a lot of people who will be eligible for this who won't realise, who are maybe putting off their dentist appointments or putting off their optician appointments because they don't know that this has come in because of the digital nature. So I think the informal session that we talked to Paddy Rooney about in the past, I think would be really good to see a journal in live action to actually see how those messages engage with the user would be really useful, even for our own ability to help constituents. I think would be useful, but also I would just I know that it has popped up on my algorithms around advertisements from the department over the fraud ads that have went out over the last 48 hours. It would be really good actually if we were getting also that type of engagement with some of the more positive points that are coming out of the department that could actually save people money too. It would be great.
Yep, members content we seek an informal session like that?
Just on that point, that advertising campaign, I don't know if other colleagues have seen anything, but I haven't seen or heard of anything, advertising wise, even on the radio, for example. And this is a very niche area, so could we maybe ask the department, is there any plans around that? I certainly haven't seen anything on their majorly on their social media channels. I may have missed it, but certainly, what is the advertising plan in this regard? Because that's where they may pick people up, that aren't on social media, for example. But could there be a radio ad?
I think we'd asked for the communications plan actually before, Andy, because that was something we've raised a few times. Is around this.
We did get a response on that. I think the response was that it will appear on it'll appear on their online record.
The journal.
Yeah.
Sometimes there can be a lot of information on those journals. I know obviously you're not allowed to support individuals to do the application or etc. But certainly many through the office and I've seen and I'm familiar what it looks like. But sometimes there can be quite a lot of information, especially when somebody is first applying. There can be quite a lot of journal entries go in. So again, it's important that that's the department's cognizant of that, because if there's a lot of information being disseminated to an individual, it's very easy to miss it.
Yeah.
Yep. So
go back and ask any plans to advertise in relation to the.
It says here around healthcare costs, and that bit around dental and optical practitioners, and the posters, etc. But what is the more sort of public facing side of it? Where individuals aren't going into those practices. Is there TV or radio ads that, or even newspaper ads that could be done? Did you know you may be entitled to?
Yep. So right into,
Okay.
request that, Thank
Got
you.
that one, yeah.
Thank you, members. 6.13 is a response including worked examples from the department to members' queries in relation to changes to funding for new social homes, particularly focusing on detailed figures, assumptions and the worked examples used in the decision-making process to change the funding model, and comparative figures in relation to the impact of similar changes from other jurisdictions. Detailed information on the recent Innovation Lab, to include which housing associations were in attendance. Any members, any comments in relation to that item? Kelly?
I'm aware that the Federation of Housing Associations and the housing associations themselves have been considering the matter and had come up with a report. I just wonder if we could get a written confirmation back from NIFA if any of those housing associations that, I know that it's very good actually in this that it clarified that anybody that had applied for a housing scheme in advance of the date of the change, that would be held at the previous rate, but anything from the 1st of December would be at the new rate. But it would be good to actually get that factual detail from NIFA, just how many housing associations have to pull back or change plans as a result, just so we can see the actual impact, because if there is no impact, fair enough. If there is an impact, then we need to see if that's taken down the number of houses more.
And we do have NIFA coming to us actually on the 19th of March. Would you be content?
Oh, sure. Well, if I can ask them to
Ask
provide
that in advance?
You have that in advance, yeah.
Okay.
And they are coming to us, so
Yeah.
we will get a further
Okay.
chance to discuss that. Anything else, members, on that one? No? Otherwise content with that proposal? Item 6.14 is a response from the department regarding the Housing Fund and Housing Association grant and the Housing Fund's additional payment impact. Any in relation to that, members? It's linked to the previous one, and we do have NIFA comment. So okay. Item 6.15 is a response from the department on the conversion to the new style employment and support allowance. It covers a range of questions asked by the committee following our meeting on the 11th of December. Do members have any comments in relation to 6.15?
I'm a bit confused, Chair. See on page 133 where it talks about regarding the issue of Easy Read standard version of letter. I can confirm that the notifications issued included specific reference to the availability. If somebody needs Easy Read, there's no point in putting it in a letter that's not Easy Read to tell them to contact them to get an Easy Read version. Can we just clarify under accessibility standards why when ESA, to be honest, are a lot of people with learning difficulties, it's not just as a matter of course, as you know, that it's provided an Easy Read first instead of somebody having to go and ask for it. Because to be honest, I'd be very honest here, and I'm not going to name the person's name. I have a person who comes to my office to get all these letters read to them to understand what the heck they're about. And this is somebody who has been moved from ESA to Universal Credit. How many times do we have to say, you know, when we've got vulnerable people here, just make it an Easy Read version first.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants more details, then they can get the busier letter. I'm concerned that there is always this need for people with disabilities or learning difficulties to have to go an extra stage to understand things when it should be easy first.
And they may not even glean the fact that the extra stage is available from the letter. And I think we probably all have people in our constituency offices on a daily basis. Pam?
Yeah, I think it is huge. We do all have constituents the same, and I'm with Kelly here. I prefer Easy Read for myself, quite frankly. Yeah. Why not? Is there? I know you've raised this before, Kelly, in the committee. So, is there a particular reason why we don't default to? Is there a cost, or is there a reason why? Do we know why the default is?
Hard to read.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Hard to read.
Yeah, no, it seems to make sense because obviously the work has been put into having the other one available. So,
just curious, is there
a reason? Yeah, and fair enough if there is a rationale to that.
I wonder. I know in the past there was some comment about the template letter might come from DWP, and our guys don't have the ability to amend that. Can we just seek that clarification? Is it because it's DWP led, and could we
there
even
cost perhaps?
Could be. But if we could ask the department to have a review of their policy to have Easy Read as standard as opposed to how it is now.
I'm sure the campaign for plain English are listening in intensely around just general government
get rid of the jingoism.
Yeah.
But I do think, Chair, just particularly when it is this cohort
Absolutely,
of people in our society that are requiring
It's a
the extra
foreseeable
support.
need.
Absolutely, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, Claire, are you content with
Yes.
the detail? And members are content with that action?
Yes, please.
Thank you. 6.16 then is the Department's response to the Committee's query on ensuring the severe weather emergency protocol does not fail individuals in future. Do members have any comment in relation to this item? Kelly? Yeah.
I'm not happy with this. SWEP gets called. It's not a statutory provision. So Housing Executive, work away, get the notice out. We're constantly getting information. I'm sure everybody's got the same emails as I have received, that SWEP is confusing, it's complicated, not everybody knows that it has been called. And to say that SWEP has been enacted fully or properly, but people are still on the streets, not able to get accommodation, means that for me, SWEP hasn't worked. So I think that we need to ask if the department are taking forward any further consideration of the concerns that have been raised recently about the provision of SWEP, and to ask if there's any way that this could be made a statutory provision. Why is it not statutory? For saving lives.
Yeah, I'd be content with it. I feel similar. I do get that sense where, offers are being made, however, for whatever reason, the offers, they're not working and people are still being left in vulnerable and dangerous situations. And in that sense, it's not working. So I think there is a kind of a further stretch to try to ensure that it does work in those critical times. Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, we understand it's individuals with very complex issues and needs. So it doesn't seem to be so much about capacity, or there was reference to capacity in one instance, I think. So I'm not sure where we go with this, but how do we get a better understanding of what exactly it is, and is it relevant to this committee? Because clearly lots of the issues will be health related as well. I don't know, I'm not sure what I'm even asking here, Chair, but what I'm saying is, yes, it's not the statutory provision you would think it should be, but if it's so difficult and so complex, maybe we should know more about it in more detail. So should we ask for some kind of more in-depth presentation around it, or is that appropriate given that we'd probably have to drill down into the complex issues?
So yeah, and absolutely.
I'm just trying to be sensitive around it too.
And there's no doubt that rough sleeping is particular. There are cross-departmental elements to that, and health is a big one. I suppose in terms of the SWEP, when it comes to the severe weather, it's a very specific part of that. So I'm just looking to check what your proposal was again in relation to. I'm wondering actually, Pam's or Kelly's proposal on the statutory, would that then ensure that health would have to be involved if it's on a statutory basis? I don't know, but
that could be part of the consideration of making it statutory. Yeah, there's a cross-departmental matter to this. The actual housing falls directly to communities, but that health and well-being piece is wider. I think that the question is to ask communities if they will make SWEP statutory, so it gives it a more formal grounding, and then may bring in the other departments. And when they're looking at if they're considering making it strategy, I'm sure they'll consider that. But I'm wondering, at the People's Kitchen, Paul McCusker, if we maybe could ask him for a written briefing on the issues. He's sending us all emails, so we've seen a lot of stuff, but it'd be good to get it in black and white where the actual issues are. I know, for instance, that somebody was offered a place in Newry but wasn't offered transport to Newry from Belfast. I know that there was a capacity issue with one of the centres because they had taken in a very vulnerable person with other issues and they couldn't put anyone else in the room with them. So it reduced down their total numbers they could take, but they were still providing SWEP. So people were being moved away, but by the time that came forward, it was quite late on. It's out of hours, it's all that complexity. It's because this is an emergency procedure that there's issues. But I think Paul McCusker is on the ground on a regular basis during SWEP and has been trying to highlight this. I know that there's the cross-party meeting. There's another one due coming up very shortly. And it was really useful. There's a task and finish group, I believe, working on this. It would be useful to get an update from that task and finish group where they're at the minute. Just
Yeah.
they're not finished yet.
Is that the meeting Karen and
Yes.
had in City Hall?
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought even just the optics of that were good in the sense
Very
that there
good.
was a lot of the right people around the table, and you would want to see that translating into. So we'll seek an update from the Task and Finish group, an update from Paul McCosker, and to ask the department, are they considering putting this on a statutory basis?
Yeah.
Members content with those three?
Sure, I'm just wondering, and I get obviously we're under time constraints, but if there is the will around the room maybe to do a similar session to what we done in Skenos around the community-led housing and bring in a range of stakeholders in, and then maybe a report can be done at the end of it, because obviously Kelly, you've got a certain amount of information. There was the cross-party meeting engagement, but there's certainly something that appears to be going wrong. I've met with the housing executive, as I know others have. They have one view. Paul and others who are on the ground are obviously coming back with another view. So I think it'd be really good if we had the time and space. It's such an important issue. It can really come down to life and death in certain situations, is to see if we can bring a focused meeting on that and with a tangible report at the end of it.
Yeah, I think we could.
Yeah.
It is an
Very
important
important.
issue, there's no doubt. And clearly, given it's not working for some people, it needs a focus.
Yeah, and I think, well, given the frequency that this is now having to be applied with all the weather warnings, it seems to be every other day of the week. So this is not a once in a blue moon situation. This is actually quite frequent, by the sounds of it.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, members. That's a few action points there. Moving on then to 6.17, which is a response covering members' queries arising from the Child Maintenance Service Annual Report 2024-25. The response contains information in relation to the following. There's data on the number of complaints received, how the complaints were dealt with, how complaints which involve communication and information sharing between parties with shared involvement in child maintenance disputes are handled. So do members have any comments in relation to that item? Or content there? Yeah. Moving on to 6.18 is the Department's response to concerns raised by members in relation to ministerial comments made in an Nolan Show interview regarding the publishing of benefit fraud sentencing outcomes. Any comments, members, or members content? Okay, 6.19 is a further response from the Department in relation to the Fraud, Error and Recovery Bill and the Committee's query on the cost of engaging PSNI in current fraud investigations. Do members have any comments in relation to that item or content? Yeah. Item 6.20 is the Department's response in relation to members' requests of the breakdown of funding for festive lighting per council and includes details of the Department's development offices. Any comments in relation to that, members? No, thank you. Item 6.21 is an acknowledgement from the Department in relation to the UK Town of Culture 2028 and City of Culture 2029, specifically regarding the delay in notifying the Committee of events that were taking place. The Department will endeavour to ensure events are communicated in a timely manner in future. Members content, thank you. Item 6.22 is a detailed response from the Department in relation to FOI requests over the past 10 years and any trends in relation to requests received. It specifically answers the Committee's questions regarding the total number of Freedom of Information requests received by the Department, the number and percentage of these that were refused or declined, a breakdown of the specific justifications or exemptions cited for these refusals, and identification of any trends in FOI requests. So, do members have any comments to wish to make in relation to that? Are members content? Thank you. Item 6.23 is the departmental response regarding the Supporting People Modernisation Framework, a modernisation project, and its projected timeframe for completion, which appears to be a couple of years. Members content with that? Go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to say the last paragraph, the housing executive is currently in stage 2. I was a little bit concerned because one of the key things about supporting people is actually the people who deliver those frontline services. And we know that we've heard for years from frontline workers that there hasn't been an increase to their pay, the terms and conditions are not fantastic for them. But it doesn't appear to be part of the strategic needs assessment being carried out by the housing executive is the loss of very skilled staff for that frontline services. Can we write to the housing executive then to ask them, as part of their strategic needs assessment, are they considering the appropriate staffing levels and the issue of because we'd had a decision in the last mandate about minimum wages and minimum pay and what do you call that? The basic living wage being used in some of these. To be honest, these people need to be paid a lot more than that. But I just wonder if we can ask the housing executive if, as part of their strategic needs, they're considering that staffing, because without those staff, we don't have supporting people.
Yeah. Members content with that? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, content?
Yep.
Yeah. 6.24 there is the department's response to committee's question about what considerations were under review regarding the sexual orientation strategy, and contains some additional information in relation to recent meetings which have taken place. Any comments or in relation to that item, members? No, thank you. Item 6.25 is a response from the department regarding the ROI Mother and Baby Institutions payment. While officials have continued to engage with DWP to establish if an indefinite disregard will be introduced in Britain, DWP has not yet made a decision and indicates it's unable to indicate a time frame for a decision to be made. So, members, any comments or? Yeah. Item 6.26 is a more detailed response from the department in relation to the NI Football Fund. The letter received at page 230 supersedes the letter received at page 236 and should be the correspondence that members consider. It covers a response to multiple letters sent by the committee and confirms that officials are happy to brief the committee in closed session. So, any comments on that, or are members content to wish to confirm a closed session briefing? Yeah. Content, thank you. Yep, clerk.
Yeah, we'll get that arranged.
Item 6.27 is a response from the department regarding the Department of Finance's review of arm's length bodies. Do members have any comments in relation to that, or content to note? Content. Finally, members, then item 6.28 is a response from the department to our request to see the executive paper and business case submitted in relation to the Minister's request to ring-fence funding for the Social Housing Development Programme. Do members have any comments in relation to that item? Yeah. Okay. No comments, members, then. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7, members, is correspondence. Correspondence, and as usual we'll proceed through the correspondence. I now intend to consider the items by number in bundles and ask if you wish to draw out, highlight or seek briefings in relation to any specific item of correspondence, or if you're content to confirm the step as proposed at the memo, which is at page 7.1 starting on page 252 of the pack. Go ahead, Pam.
Right, Chair, I was actually back on trying to catch up on the so I get the number. The ring fencing of funding for social housing development programme.
That's at 7. That's later. Is that not in correspondence?
Is there an item in correspondence?
Matters arising.
347? No.
6.28. Is that right?
That's it.
Page 347, is it?
6.28, the development
So that's
programme.
That's back to Matters Horizon, yeah.
Back, yes, sorry, Chair.
Okay.
Keep up with everything going on there. No, on page 247 there.
Yep.
The final paragraph, I've been clear, I've been doing everything I can to stretch the budget to enable as many new social homes as possible to be delivered, but in his view it's imperative that the executive also commits to doing everything it can to ensure sufficient budget can be allocated to SHDP as early as possible to give us the best chance of achieving a programme for government target. I ask committee to endorse this position as outlined to the executive and support my request for an appropriate ring fence budget allocation. And I think that's something we should be, as a committee, endorsing, because I'm fairly sure we do actually agree.
We already done that in the earlier item, didn't we, Chair?
Well, we have repeatedly stated that we are very keen to see further social housing being built. So there's clearly a business case needs to be progressed by the Minister through the normal channels, and in my view that should be progressed through those channels. So, Cathy?
Thanks, Chair. And Chair, just on what you said there around, I want to be very clear at the outset that, of course, we support social housing as a priority. I don't think anybody around this table would dispute the scale or the need or the importance of its delivery. However, I really struggle with what we're actually being asked here. What I think we have before us here is a request for a committee to endorse a ring-fence budget allocation without being provided a full business case. We also don't have sight of the department's overall prioritisation of capital. And we've no understanding how this proposal sits within the wider draft budget that we know is currently out for consultation. So I have difficulty with, like, am I seriously being asked to blindly put faith in a minister that this committee has already said we don't have any confidence in? It would be my view that decisions about ring fencing at this scale would be a matter between Communities Minister and Finance Minister, and that would be the proper process. And it concerns me that this feels like an attempt to draw the committee into a political position without giving us any information that we would need if we're going to justify this. Look, we know that the Minister tried to pull this stunt when he was in front of us here, and it's very, very clear from contributions today from Pam that they're attempting to follow that through. In the committee here, we are a scrutiny committee, and it's our role to examine how decisions are going to be made and how priorities are set, but not to be cornered into a position without the proper information that we need. I don't believe it's appropriate for this committee to be endorsing ring fencing without having the proper information. And what I would actually support is requesting the proper information on the department's capital prioritisation and how this fits within the draft budget, so that we can be informed on the evidence rather than just incomplete evidence here, and allow the proper budgetary process to proceed as it normally does.
Yep. I'd be.
Sure, can I just clarify back to my earlier request that was approved by the committee, where we are writing to the executive around the need for increased investment in our social housing development programme?
Yep.
And that has been agreed by the committee. This is a different proposal around a specific ring fencing proposal that I wouldn't be comfortable with as a committee member in relation to endorsing something that we haven't even seen a business case for. Mark, were you looking in there?
I would be surprised if committee hasn't written to this purpose before to the executive on the issue of social housing development programme and the ring fence and the funding, be it any time if there's an announcement in Westminster that I think committee has written seeking that any Barnett consequential will have been ring fenced for the same here, i.e. housing in this instance. I mean, earlier we had responses on rate support grant. Committee had, at my proposal, I think, written seeking the ring fencing of funding for rate support grant. I can understand where members, yourself included, Chair, are coming from on this in terms of needing to see the business case or wanting to see the business case. But I don't think that has always been the case either. And as a committee, we are here to scrutinise the Minister. We do our best to do so. It's not always easy. He doesn't make it easy. But we are here to support as well. And a key component within this department and within the programme for government is the delivery of 5,600 social houses. And we're nowhere near that and aren't going to get near that unless the executive do this. So in this instance, I wouldn't have an issue supporting this course of action.
All right, I'll come back to you, Andy. I'll come to Kelly first.
Look, we all need more social housing. We have far, far too many people sitting on the social housing waiting list, and far, far too many people who currently have full duty homelessness status. But you know what? I would rather see from the executive a very clear plan of how they're getting all of us out of this, because we can give the Minister for Community billions to build houses, and they're not going to go anywhere unless what's under the ground is fixed with Northern Ireland Water. And the Construction Employers Federation has given us a report telling us this. There's joined up thinking needs to happen here. We already have housing. I hope it will continue on the programme for government. So there should be something there, but I need to see more from the executive on this. I want to see the business plan as well to see where this is going to be put, because there's houses needed all over the place. So where are these things going? Where's Northern Ireland Water and all of this? Where's the access to the grid? You know, there's a lot of things about fuel poverty. You know, I think that while we all absolutely want more houses, I'm sadly going to say our minister is not going to hit his targets in any way, shape or form because of other issues. You know, with the best will in the world, we could give him money today, and the housing executive or the housing associations will tell you they'll not be able to open one shovel in the ground, or they'll not be able to put one shovel in the ground for 2 years because of planning, because of water, because of everything else. So
Yeah, in this case, yeah.
we want more money going into this, but we need to see an executive strategy on it. You know.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more detail. Going from the general to the specific in this case is I think, and absolutely happy to endorse the fact that and we have in this meeting said that. However, there's clearly a business case here to be made, and I would prefer to see that before committee is asked to endorse a specific proposal like this. So that's my sense.
To pick up on the point that Kelly raised there, she's perfectly correct. Even if we had the budget in certain areas, especially in my constituency, you can't turn a brick because there's no infrastructure in place, and it impacts on, I think, roughly around 200 houses in my area, whereby a new sewage pumping station was to be installed. It's now been put on the long finger to 2027, right on the edge of the river. So there is clear problems with infrastructure that needs to be addressed before we can get to the stage of building the houses on the land. So, yeah, I agree.
Okay, briefly please, Pam, we need to come to a conclusion.
Yeah, I agree
And
with that.
sorry, I have to come back to Andy first. Andy, you had indicated before Pam there.
Yeah, sure. Look, I've no difficulty, like Mark, in endorsing the ring fencing, at least to deliver on the PFG commitment. I appreciate colleagues' request for more information, and we should always get more information. But I think the letter obviously highlights the late stage in which capital is often provided through monitoring rounds is not the appropriate way, in my opinion, to do business and provide the certainty and clarity to housing associations delivering social housing. That's notwithstanding, and I do note Belfast Telegraph article yesterday, for example, on the refusals around NI Water for house building. We've had NI Water in here before as well, Chair, in relation to the connection difficulties. So there is a wider executive approach to be taken, and I don't think that the approach on that has been sufficient. For example, there's clear issues with NI Water, but the approach to date has not recognised the scale of the problem. You know, just sort of providing in year monitoring round funding at the last minute is not a sustainable way to do things. But I think we at least need to be given certainty. We have a support role for the Minister, and I have no difficulty supporting him in this regard. Likewise, I have no difficulty challenging him where I believe he's wrong.
Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, Chair, no, thank you. I think we absolutely need to support the call in this particular letter. I think we as a committee should be backing and assisting the Minister on this issue. It's a PFG commitment to deliver housing, and I think it's absolutely appropriate that we do that, and I would...
Okay, you've made that point, Pam. I thought you were making a new point. So that point has been, there clearly is a difference of opinion there. I don't get a sense of consensus within the committee. I would certainly like to see a business case before backing, endorsing a specific plan in that regard.
Chair, I don't know what business case we're talking about. What are we asking for in a business case?
Well,
is this a normal thing that we would ask for, a business case?
Well, it's my understanding the Minister is bringing forward a business case to the Department for Finance for this ring fencing, that business case. That's my understanding.
Do we not at the very least support the executive-wide programme for government, and would that not be an appropriate start, Chair, to say, you know, that we would support the ring fencing of enough funding for the Minister to deliver on the PFG cross-executive commitment? Because fundamentally that is what we said to the general public as an executive that we're going to deliver on.
Exactly.
In general terms, yes, I would say that, but I think this is a specific business case. The Minister's proceeding with the department at the present time. That was my understanding of what he's asking. But
can we not?
I've no issue with the principle of ring fencing funding either, by the way. But it's in relation to my understanding of the way it was put to us here. Was there was a specific proposal in with the Minister, and without us even seeing that, we were being asked to endorse that. That's my understanding of what this request is about.
Can we not do that, Chair? You know, say that we support the approach of ring fencing for the Minister to be able to deliver at the very least on the PFG commitment, and if the Minister is able and feels that he can go beyond that he sets out the business cases to how he achieves that. I have consistently said in debates and in this room that I think we need to be creating the conditions to be able to build at least 5,000 homes per year. I know that is significantly ambitious, notwithstanding the NI water challenges, the wider infrastructure challenges, but I think at the very least the executive needs to be delivering on the PFG commitments, and Mark will obviously highlight that through his executive business, where he's repeatedly stated that the executive isn't able to deliver on the PFG commitments.
Lisa?
Quite simply, Chair, I actually think we're putting the cart before the horse here, and that we should see the business case, and on the basis of the business case it really strengthens our argument then to ring fence.
Chair, what is this business case? Where did it come from? I'm not clear as to what we're talking about. Did the Minister say there was a business case?
Yes.
Did, yeah.
When he was here, we asked him for it.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think we could follow up with the Minister separately on that, but I think in principle we absolutely need to support. We need to support the ring fencing so we can have this basic provision, and it is basic provision, made available. I think it's...
Well, I'll tell you, let's ask the Minister to clarify, does he have a business case? Because if he has a specific business case that we've been asked to endorse without saying, let's ask then, I propose we ask the Minister, is there a specific business case that he is pursuing with the Department of Finance, and then we can base our decision based on that.
I think in principle we should be backing the Minister.
I know you think that, Pam. I know you think that.
But all the parties, it's a PFG commitment. We've all signed up to actually this provision. So I don't understand why we would be hesitating.
Because the business case, there has been reference to a business case. Cttee?
Yeah, Chair, I think there's conflating of issues here. There's absolutely no doubt that everybody in this room and this committee supports social housing and the building of social housing and wants that to happen, and wants the executive to be able to fulfil their commitments. But we are being shoehorned in here without making a decision on a specific case without seeing any more detail when the Minister did say that there was a business case on it. So I think it's a bit insincere in trying to frame it that we're not supporting the executive in the building of social housing, because that's not what we're saying at all. In fact, we're saying the complete opposite of that. We want more detail so we can be able to further support this.
Yeah, and what I propose is that we clarify with the Minister, is there a business case or not? If there's no business case, then we've been asked in a general sense, we can consider that at next week's meeting. However, if there is a business case, then I think that we should consider that in terms of the actual request.
And I second that.
Take it back to us being a scrutiny committee. So in the paragraph on 246 at the very bottom, it says, no doubt the ability to deliver 2,600 units next year will be a very significant challenge because uncertainties remain. I think, to be honest, these are uncertainties outside of our Minister for Communities, bailiwick. There's lots of things there. My concern as a scrutiny committee is we take an extremely dim view, and have done for years and years and years, about budgets being applied for and then underspend and it having to be handed back. So at this stage, the Minister did say when he was here that he has it must be an internal business case, and that there was in the very last paragraph, this position as outlined to the executive. So there's something written down. Let's see it first. I'm quite happy to do that, and then I can quite happily fight for housing money all day, for goodness sake. I'm a housing spokesperson. But the thing is, we have had, sadly in the past, this capital money going back, and I'm as frustrated as the Minister would be that it's issues that are outside of his control. The money that's being talked about here with the housing executive doesn't include the money that the Northern Ireland Water needs to enable those 2,600 houses to go ahead. There's an issue about connections and developer contributions and things like that, and I don't believe that amount of money, when we've seen the original calculations of how much a social house is, that covers the costs of additional wastewater treatment. So I'm happy to support any call for monies for housing, absolutely, but to ring fence it, is it ring fenced out of the total executive budget, or is it a ring fence of the Minister's own community's budget? If it's a ring fencing of the whole executive budget, I have to say that's for people who are above my pay grade to decide, not this committee. It's finance, it's all the ministers together to do that. But I just think that we can support our minister to say, we have a housing crisis, and unless something is done to fix what all of these uncertainties that remain, then we will never get to meeting even an annual target on this, and we will see more and more people living in terrible temporary accommodation situations. So, as Andy has said, 2,600 units is a drop in the ocean compared to, I agree, Andy, we need to be hitting 5,000 houses a year to be able to touch the size of what our waiting lists are. So let's just say, be fair to the minister and say, okay, you know what you're talking about, you know what you have put forward. What is this position that was outlined to the executive? We know you're looking for more money, but what about all these, as he mentioned in the letter there, the uncertainties that remain? Are they going to prevent, if there was a ring fencing of money and these uncertainties remain, does that mean that money's at risk of not being spent? I hope not, because to be honest, we need the houses. There's clarification there for me.
Trying again, and I take Kelly's point. This is not about the department budget. This is about the housing budget, and I think we, as a committee, need to support our minister for social housing, which we all agree around this table we need. And even if that support is only a support in principle, I think we need to give the minister the support to ring fence this budget for the delivery of social housing.
The support in principle we've already in this meeting agreed to write in those terms. This is a specific proposal. Pam, briefly, please.
Yeah, just to reiterate, it's a specific proposal that we do endorse, that we do in principle accept that we're in favour of ring fencing in this particular issue, and that we write the executive on that.
Well, I would like more information on what it is we're being asked to do in this particular incident.
We're setting a precedent. If we get a request to ring fence anything in future, we need a business case accompanying it. So
the business case has already been mentioned. The business case has already been mentioned by the minister, and I don't think we're setting any precedent. We can deal on a case-by-case basis. However, the minister came to this committee seeking endorsement for a particular proposal about which we know virtually nothing, and that's the bit that I'm concerned about. The committee, being asked to take a decision on that basis. So what I'm proposing is that we ask the minister to clarify what it is he asked us to support. And when we see the clarification, the detail that we can consider that.
I have a proposal.
That's my proposal. I'd second Pam's proposal.
Okay. So we have, what's your proposal, Pam?
I propose that we do, as per the minister's request, that we endorse the position as outlined to executive and support his request for an appropriate ring fence budget allocation.
And I'm proposing that we ask for clarification as to what the proposal that the minister is putting forward is, and then we decide based on that information.
So you take the is committee in support of both of those proposals, or are we taking your proposal first?
We take the counter proposal first, do we?
Yeah.
So can I just clarify quickly, Pam, your ring fencing proposal, is that to deliver on PFG commitments, or is that something beyond that?
I think it's in the committee supports in principle the ring fencing of this budget in terms of deliver the PFG commitments.
I have no difficulty with that.
Committee supports in principle the ring fencing of, it says this position on page 247. So is it
yes
the ring fencing of specific budget?
Endorsed position as outlined to the executive and support the request. We need to get the wording right, just Ms. Clark. But
endorse the position of ring fencing of funds to deliver on the programme for government social housing target.
Yes, thank you, Clark.
For delivery of the programme for government social housing target.
Can I just add to that, if you don't mind, to at least deliver?
Yeah.
At least deliver on the PFG commitment. If the minister can go beyond that, then I think we would all welcome that.
Deliver. Great. Okay.
So are we now looking at two separate proposals in relation to a general around the programme for government versus what the minister was proposing here?
So I'm reading from this letter that it says our programme for government in the line above endorse this position. So that's what I understood the proposal was.
My reading of
Happy
what
to
the
be
Minister's
corrected.
saying is early on in the year when he gets his budget, he's not being provided with sufficient budget to be able to deliver on the PFG commitment. It's only coming in years, so the certainty, and that's where I'd be coming at it from, is provide the certainty to the department to deliver on the PFG commitment at that early stage.
See, the Minister within his budget is making all sorts of allocations, and I just don't understand how this interacts with other decisions the Minister's making, if housing is such a priority. I'm at a loss in that regard. Go ahead,
I
Sian.
think that's a wee bit where I am at the minute, Chair. I'm just at a loss. Obviously support more money going into social housing. That doesn't need to be called into question. But my concern is that if we go down the route of ring fencing, does that tie our hands slightly if we then go into this multi-year budget when we know it's going to be even more financially difficult? So do we then end up in a position where we've tied our hands to a ring fence budget and then we don't have enough to actually fulfil statutory obligations and other things because there's this amount of money? That's just where I am at the minute. So I would really I would welcome a bit of clarity in terms of what is the percentage of his budget that is being proposed to be ring fenced? What is the contingency plan if we actually get to a situation where he can't fulfil statutory obligations because of the amount of money being given to the department? But if we had a fully funded budget, I would absolutely 100% support this. But right now, I fear that we're putting ourselves in danger of tying our own hands.
This is part of the programme.
Sorry, I have an indication, Morris.
No, totally.
Sorry, my apologies, Chair.
Through the Chair. Kathy, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just want to pick up on the point that this is around how can we agree on this without, we don't have any sight of the department's overall capital prioritisation, how the Minister is prioritising his own budget at this minute in time. And we've no idea the impact that this has within the wider sort of draft budget that is sort of out for consultation now. So it's how this sits alongside everything else and how the Minister is prioritising, because we're seeing pots of money being spent here and there. So we've no idea where this sits in line with everything. So until we know the Minister is doing everything in his power to bring these social homes forward, how can we just blindly agree this without knowing where the rest of this sits? I just can't comprehend that.
Go ahead, Pam.
I would just say this is about whether this committee supports this in principle. I think we're getting carried away with everything else.
So, yeah,
and
I
think I hope we're all saying in principle we absolutely do support.
See, that's where my concerns is. We've been asked to take a very narrow focus on this, but lay hands off everything else and don't take any other wider considerations into account. I'm also worried in relation to, I think, the development on from Sian's point there, the money gets ring fenced, can't be spent, and then is ring fenced, so can't be spent for something else.
Well, then that's a matter for the Minister to answer to. If he's asking for the support to be able to provide sufficient funding and he can't deliver on it, then fundamentally I'd be saying to him, well, Minister, you said, back my ambition, but now you can't deliver on it.
Have Mark first, then Kelly. Mark?
Thanks, Chair. Well, with all due respect, this is nuts. No, and we've made a mountain out of not exactly a molehill, but closer to a molehill than the mountain. I don't think, and everyone here has declared and show consistently their support and recognition of the need for more housing. But I mean, how that manifests itself now in terms of a letter to the Minister or to the Executive. And I know there's a proposal there for Pam. There's a counter proposal or another proposal from yourself. I would propose, or will support, in terms of where your proposal is, Chair, if it's basically just deferring or better informing our support for this request, then I'm content enough to do that. I think we kind of have to move on today, though, as much as possible or as quickly as possible, given the time and that there are groups waiting to come on this.
Yep. Kelly?
Can I just double check what we are actually asking, because that last paragraph doesn't include ring fencing. So the Minister says, I've been clear I'm doing everything I can to stretch the budget. Fine. To enable as many new homes as possible to be delivered, but in his view it is imperative that this executive also commits to doing everything it can to ensure that a sufficient budget can be allocated to the SHDP as early as possible to give us the best chance. I'm happy to sign up to a letter for that, but it's not calling for ring fencing.
Yep.
So I ask the committee endorse this position as outlined to the executive.
Yep. Yeah, and
I know he goes on to
that
say
ring
then my
fencing's a
request for an
different-
appropriate ring fence budget. But I have to say this, look, we're all from different political parties here, and all political parties in Northern Ireland have agreed that health and education take priority in our budget setting. If we ring fence this and it eats into health and education, I don't know how that fits with the committee supporting the minister or the committee stepping into TEO's role. I don't know how that works, but I'm quite happy that the executive commits to doing everything it can for social housing. Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be wonderful? I think the ring fence budget is outside of this committee's ability.
Thank you, Melissa.
Just again through the chair,
Great.
I really, it's beyond me to see why it is that we can't delay this for 1 week effectively, and that we do make that request if there is a business case, and if it's there, it's presented to the committee, and if it's not, then we're in a position then to sit down to even look at the issue then again. But I do think that we're going round in circles here, you know, for something that 1 additional week, I don't think it'll make that much difference to the ultimate outcome.
Yeah, we do need to move on. Are members content that we defer this and bring it back next week when there's more information? Members content and give members time to consider?
Sure. No,
Are members content to defer?
Not content.
Not content to defer, okay. So it's a proposal to defer. So which proposal then do we take first?
So can I be very clear on what we're proposing to defer? We're proposing to defer a decision of this committee in relation to the request to endorse the position. Is that until we get further information?
So that, just read through that position again, please, Clerk. That position that...
The proposal that I had previously noted is that the committee in principle endorses the position of ring fencing of funds
what is that in
to
this
at
now?
least the delivery of the PFG social home target. The final paragraph of page 247, final sentence is, I ask the committee endorse this position as outlined to the executive, and this position is what I read above, that sufficient budget can be allocated to the SHDP, the social housing development, as
If
early
you jump
as
to the
possible.
first paragraph of the letter, it actually states, Chair, and specifically the request to the executive that appropriate levels of funding be ring fenced for the next programme for our next year.
So
Programme next year.
There's a proposal to endorse that and a counter proposal to defer it. I think now is the two proposals, and I would certainly be in favour of deferring and allowing members time to weigh up the implications of all of it, given the issue of ring fencing. So
Is the committee in search of any further information that I can get for it, any more information I can ask for in order to inform a future decision?
well, I would like to know, does the Minister have a specific business case in with finance at the present time?
Okay,
for
so
housing?
is there a specific business case with finance?
And when you say that business case, Chair, are you talking about to deliver on the programme for government? Or are you talking beyond that?
I don't know. I don't know what the business case encompasses. That's part of the problem.
For the
I don't know.
SHDP then? For the SHDP referred to in this specific letter?
Yeah.
Would that be a request?
Yeah.
Are members content with that?
That we seek that information.
Chair, I don't think we need any further information. I think it's a decision of supporting in principle, which we absolutely should be doing. I think we should move to that position.
And there's also a proposal to defer. So which of those do we take first, Clerk?
You take the second one first because it negatives the first.
Okay. Okay, members, it seems the committee is unable to reach a consensus position in relation to this matter. Therefore, I propose to put the question matter to a vote. The question is that the decision in relation to this issue be deferred for 1 week. All those in favour?
Sorry, go with that again, Chair. Sorry.
That the decision, that we defer a decision on this matter for 1 week.
To defer based on requesting the relevant information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, based on, yeah.
Look, Chair, I'm content, based on the fact that we tied ourselves in knots in relation to the Section 30 issue, I'm content that colleagues would want to reassure themselves for the 1 week, but I think we need to come to a decision, you know, next week. And I agree with Mark, the amount of time, it's a very, very important issue, but we've gone round in circles here.
Okay, so are members clear that we're seeking to defer this decision for 1 week based on seeking further information in regard to it?
Are you going to
Are
complete the
members,
vote?
are members content?
I thought we were voting.
Yeah, we are voting. We're voting. I'm clarifying that that's the proposal, that we're deferring for 1 week to seek further information.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4.
7-4.
So that's
All those
carried.
against? Oh, yeah, carried. 2 against. Okay.
And that further information is sought in relation to that business case
Yeah.
before that decision is brought back then? Before
Yeah.
that proposal is brought
Yeah.
back?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. We need the information. Yeah.
What if there is no information to come back?
Well, they can write back and tell us that,
That's
and then we'll know that that's the case.
Well, my understanding of where we are, Chair, sorry to cut across, is we will get clarity one way or another next week, and we will take the decision as per Pam's proposal, so it will go forward next week.
Yeah.
That was the basis that I voted in the affirmative for the deferral.
And Chair, we're not saying that, I presume we're not saying that if there's no
No.
new information next week that we're deferring it again.
No.
Well, the information I'm sure will be available within the week. The Minister came whenever he came to committee to seek, so we're seeking clarification on that. So that should be readily available. So we're going to come back to it next week.
Chair, but for clarity, if there is no further information available, we are returning to the issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
To support in principle.
We'll return to the issue and see if members are prepared then, on the basis of no further information, whether they're prepared at that stage to back it or not. That's what we're going back to.
Item 6.28 will return to the agenda. That's a further request then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, members, thank you. Moving to item 7, correspondence. As usual, we'll proceed through the items and members can indicate if they wish to raise any issues. The agenda item 7.1, starting at page 252 of the pack. So 7.6, just to flag up, 7.6 and 7.7 are the Minister's written statement and a press release respectfully regarding the Warm Healthy Home strategy. 7.11 is a further update received from Housing Executive in relation to the individual housing complaint that we considered at last week's meeting. This update was received immediately following last week's meeting. Item 7.13 is updated information from Advice NI regarding the removal of the 2-child limit. Are members content that we add that as an additional appendix to our LCM report?
Yes.
Yep. Anything else then within the correspondence one of the members wish to raise or highlight? No, thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Was that 7.4? Go back to that date on the 20th of May. I'm just checking there. It's May. I was going to say it's a Saturday, but I'm just wondering that urban regeneration and neighbourhood renewal. I'm just wondering, is anybody from Raise or anything like that there going along to that would be picking up the details?
I can check that out.
Yeah, that would be good. Yep. And circulate to yourselves.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, anything else then, members within correspondence? Okay, moving on then to agenda item 8, SL1 Universal Credit and Employment Support Allowance, Rates of Allowances, Amendments and Modifications Regulations, NI 2026. The SL1 was received on Tuesday and the relevant papers can be found in your table packet, page 2. This is the first SL1 proposal we have received since the new process was implemented to support improved committee scrutiny of delegated legislation. So we now have joining us from the department Helen Vaughan. Helen is Principal for Work and Health, Social Security Policy, Legislation and Decision Making, and Maureen Scullion, who is Deputy Principal for Work and Health, Social Security Policy, Legislation and Decision Making. You're very welcome to this morning's meeting, and I'll not run through the proposal as you're here. So I think it's yourself, Helen, maybe take the committee through the detail, and then we can go to members' questions if needed when you're finished.
Right. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for giving us the opportunity to attend in relation to the SL1 for these regulations. These are parity social security measures coming before the committee in draft under the new guidance for departments on delegated legislation, which came into effect from the 5th of January. The committee will be well aware of the very particular challenges that the department faces in the timelines relating to parity social security legislation and our legal obligations in that regard. So I am pleased that we've been able on this occasion to share with the committee a draft of the proposed statutory rule and accompanying explanatory memorandum as required under the new procedures. It may be helpful, Chair, before I turn to the measures under the statutory rule itself, if I set them in context. This SR is being brought forward pursuant to requirements under the Universal Credit Act 2025. The underlying policy objective of the Act, as stated by the UK Government, was to rebalance the support within universal credit. The committee will be aware that the Act made provision to increase the universal credit standard allowance above the rate of inflation in each of the years from 2026-27 to 2029-30. The Act also reduces to £217.26 the rate of the UC limited capability for work and work-related activity element for certain new claimants from the 6th of April 2026, and it freezes that rate until 2029-30. The reduced rate won't apply to existing claimants, which the Act defines as pre-2026 claimants, nor certain protected claimants, and that is those claimants with severe conditions fall within the severe conditions criteria, or those who are terminally ill. For existing LCWRA recipients and those protected claimants, the combined rate of the UC standard allowance and the current higher rate of LCWRA will rise at least in line with inflation every year for the next 4 years. The Act requires the Department to bring forward legislation to set rates of certain benefits in line with the specific formula under the Act. It also made provision for mirroring rates to be set for income-related employment and support allowance. Although it is planned that migration to UC will be completed by the end of March 2026, this provision was included as a precautionary measure to protect any ESSA income-related claimants who had not migrated by the time the provisions under the Act came into force. So that's the broader context for the measures under this statutory rule. But turning to the statutory rule itself, it makes amendments to the Employment and Support Allowance Regulations Northern Ireland 2008 and the Universal Credit Regulations Northern Ireland 2016. And I appreciate, Chair, that the content of the SR is quite technical, but very broadly speaking, it does two key things. Firstly, as I say, it fulfils the obligation on the Department under the UC Act to set the rates of certain benefits in line with the formula set out in the Act. For 2026-27, the rates for the Universal Credit Standard Allowance and the equivalent for income-related ESSA personal allowances are increased by the rate of the CPI, that's 3.8%, plus a further 2.3%. So, for example, a single claimant under 25 will see an increase in the rate from £316.98 to £338.58. The SR also sets the benefit rates for the higher rate of LCWRA, the equivalent support group in income-related ESSA, and the severe disability and enhanced disability premia in income-related ESSA. The amended rates for those elements are set out in Regulations 2 and 3 of the statutory rule. The other key change being brought forward under this SR is that it defines further circumstances in which a claimant with LCWRA is to be considered a pre-2026 claimant, that is an existing claimant. And this is significant because, as I mentioned, this category will retain access to the higher LCWRA rate. The additional categories which have been added are claimants awaiting a first assessment before the 6th of April, who are later assessed as LCWRA, claimants awaiting a reassessment before the 6th of April and later awarded LCWRA. Claimants who are found to have LCWRA but are not yet entitled to have an LCWRA element in their award because they're in the relevant period under Regulation 28 of the UC regulations as at the 6th of April 2026. That's the UC LCWRA waiting period. And claimants entitled to the support component of ESSA income-related or new style ESSA before the 6th of April and who have that status continuously until such time as they make a claim for UC after the 6th of April. This is provided for in Regulation 3, which inserts a new Schedule 5A in the Universal Credit Regulations Northern Ireland 2016. And these are again quite technical changes, but entirely in line with the UK Government commitment that the reduced rate of LCWRA should not apply to existing claimants. The SR also makes a number of technical, transitional and consequential amendments to existing legislation. The Department has conducted the usual screening exercises in relation to this statutory rule. No rural, child impact, regulatory or data protection impacts were identified. A Section 75 screening was also carried out, which concluded that the policy would not have significant implications for equality of opportunity or good relations, and that an equality impact assessment was not necessary. In terms of the timing for this statutory rule, the equivalent DWP SI, and that's SI number 113 of 2026, was laid this Monday the 9th of February. It will come into force on the 6th of April. Ordinarily, the Department would seek to lay the corresponding Northern Ireland statutory rule as closely as possible to the laying date for the DWP SI. But for this statutory rule, the Department has shared the draft SR and the EM with the Committee as set out in the guidance. The Department would intend to lay the statutory rule no later than the 13th of March, and this is in order to ensure that the regulations can come into operation on the 6th of April in alignment with DWP, while adhering to the 21-day rule. This will ensure that Northern Ireland claimants can benefit from the positive changes affected by this SR, both the uplifted rates of benefit and the expansion of the categories of existing claimant who will retain the higher LCWRA rate. And we'd be very happy to take questions from members.
Okay, thank you. Members, anything in relation to this LCM? Members wish to, or SL1, sorry, members wish to raise or question?
Yeah, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Sharon.
Just obviously, I know this is on the back of the Green Paper from the Labour government. I want to put on record, I know it's not really up to the department. I know this is parity, but I just obviously do not agree on any reduction in the LWRCA, or the LCWRA. I think this is creating a two-tier system. You know, you're having existing claimants who pre 2020, pre this year, are then going to be receiving a higher rate frozen in those cash terms, and then you have those who are receiving this year. I just don't think it's right, and I just want to put on record. I know we've talked an awful lot about the Labour government and the choices that they made in terms of that Green Paper, but fully understand that that's not within the gift of the department at this moment in time, unless we go down a mitigations route, which I don't think that we're going to be in any position to do so. But it's just that two-tier system I don't think is right.
I appreciate that. And just to be clear, the statutory rule doesn't make any reductions, it only uplifts the rates. It's the Act itself which affects the reduction.
Okay, anything else, members? No, listen, thank you, both of you, Helen and Maureen. Appreciate you attending today and outlining that now. So, members, then I'll outline the next steps in this, because this is now that's the first SL1 subject to that new process, and the following then is how this will be rolled out. So the committee will next consider this delegated legislation on 12th of March. The committee team will issue a call for views on the proposal using the standard survey on citizen space from tomorrow, 13th February 2026. The call for views will close at midnight on 25th of February 2026. The SL1 and the proposed draft statutory rule and the relevant papers from the department will be published on the committee website and notified to relevant stakeholders alongside the relevant deadline. So, can I ask if members are agreed that the committee will consider the proposal again on 12th of March 2026 alongside a summary of any comments and feedback received via Citizen Space? Are members agreed?
Yeah, agreed.
And that the Citizen Space call for views is published tomorrow and that a notification is sent to relevant stakeholders. Are members agreed? Yep, thank you. Okay, members. Moving on then to further item, thank you, Helen and Maureen. Moving on to agenda item 9, further education sector retention and disposal schedule. Members, this schedule was considered by the Committee for the Economy at its meeting on the 4th of February, when members indicated they were content with the schedule. A memo in relation to this approval can be found at page 433 of the meeting pack. Are members content to approve the schedule? Thank you. Okay, members, then we're moving on to today's briefing sessions. Agenda item 10, Cricket Ireland, and we're hearing oral evidence on the work of Cricket Ireland. Members, the briefing paper for the agenda item is at page 487 of your meeting papers. And just before the meeting starts, I would like to thank the officials for attending today. So we'll wait till we get the officials into the room just. Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Hey all, how are you? So I'd like to thank you for attending the briefing today, and I really do appreciate the fact that you've rescheduled to accommodate the committee at an earlier stage. I also want to declare the interest that I attended the summer camp that Cricket Ireland arranged in the summer here on the grounds of Stormont, and that I have met with you recently. I now welcome the following officials to the meeting: Elaine Nolan, who is Director of Strategy and Growth with Cricket Ireland, and Callum Atkinson, who is CEO of Northern Cricket Union. So Elaine, I think it's yourself, is it, going to make some opening comments?
Sure, just similar to yourself, I've met recently as well.
Yeah,
Also, to Claire, yes.
Clearly.
Attended the summer camp in a different role and met with you recently.
Yep, thank you. I
Yeah.
think we've all had the benefit of that engagement with you. So I appreciate your time today. And Elaine, could you go ahead and make your brief opening statement, and we'll then move to questions from members. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairperson, members of the committee, thank you for inviting us here today. As Chairperson pointed out, I'm Elaine Nolan, Director of Growth and Strategy with Cricket Ireland, and I'm joined by Callum Atkinson, the Chief Executive of the Northern Cricket Union. And we welcome the opportunity to outline the growth of cricket in Northern Ireland, its community impact, and the strategic opportunity we have ahead. Cricket across Northern Ireland is experiencing sustained and inclusive growth. Across the Northern and North West Cricket Unions, more than 60 clubs are now active, with a 17% increase in clubs and 55% increase in teams since 2021. Participation continues to rise, particularly among young people and in the women and girls game. 5 new clubs have affiliated in the past 2 years, many with strong South Asian membership, reflecting the diversity of our communities. Established clubs are also expanding rapidly. For example, Dunmurry Cricket Club has grown from 1 senior team to 5 in just 2 years. One of the most significant areas of progress has been the women and girls game. In the Northern Cricket Union, women's teams have increased from 4 to 25 in just 5 years, and similar growth has been seen in the North West. This represents a 267% increase regionally. This momentum is reflected internationally, with the Ireland women's team qualifying for the Women's T20 World Cup in England, which takes place in June this year. The team is now ranked among the top 10 teams globally, providing real visibility and aspiration for young girls across Northern Ireland. While cricket is traditionally a summer sport, we are actively expanding opportunities to support year-round participation. An indoor cricket league launched in 2022 now involves 16 clubs playing competitively from October to March. And through partnerships with organisations such as Lord Taverners and the Disability Sport and I, an all-ability table cricket for SEND schools with 140 children taking part was held at Nixa last Monday. And we're piloting a visually impaired cricket programme at Ulster University, Jordanstown. This year, we'll also introduce the first NCU Masters competition for over 50s, creating additional social and wellbeing focused playing opportunities. Growth, however, brings its challenges, and in several areas we're now at capacity. In the Northern Cricket Union, 7 clubs share mollusk playing fields, which only has 3 pitches. Indoor provision in Belfast is limited, with Ulster University Jordanstown currently the only venue suitable for pathway and performance cricket. The North West Cricket Union also faces similar challenges, with many multi-sports facilities lacking cricket-specific spaces, or indeed where cricket is in situ, suggests struggles to acquire booking time. There is real potential to better integrate cricket into shared multi-use sports facilities. Artificial cricket wickets can be installed alongside football and GAA pitches, maximising land and capital investments. And we would welcome continued collaborations with councils and partners in this regard. We do welcome the move towards multi-year funding through Sport NI, and as cricket is a summer sport, late confirmation of funding can sometimes limit our ability to plan programmes, recruit staff and prepare prepare facilities effectively. Earlier clarity enables better delivery and stronger community outcomes. Cricket Ireland is committed to ensuring that participation growth delivers tangible community benefits, and a recent example of that is the Cricket Connect summer camp at Stormont, which brought together more than 150 children from cricket, GAA, hockey, rugby and non-sporting backgrounds. Initiatives like this create neutral spaces, build connections, support well-being, particularly for young people who would not otherwise engage in organised sports. This work was recently shortlisted for an Olympic Impact Award. Another opportunity is the European T20 Premier League, which represents an exciting new professional franchise competition for cricket across Ireland, Scotland and the Netherlands. The league will feature city-based teams, including a Belfast franchise, providing a new professional pathway for players and creating a high-profile annual sporting event across the 3 host nations. Fixtures are scheduled to be hosted in Northern Ireland from 2027 onwards, bringing regular international standard cricket to Belfast and Northern Ireland. And this creates new opportunities for tourism, fan engagement and youth participation. The league will also strengthen Northern Ireland's position within the wider global cricket landscape. Ireland has been confirmed as a co-host for the ICC T20 World Cup in 2030, presenting a rare opportunity for Northern Ireland. There is a credible case for Stormont to be considered as a host venue, subject to facility readiness and the normal business case processes. From an operational perspective, international venues typically need to be completed and tested in advance of major tournaments, which highlights the importance of early planning if Northern Ireland is to fully benefit from this opportunity. The World Cup presents a global platform with 2.5 billion fans worldwide and billions of broadcast viewers. Hosting matches will offer more than elite sport. It would support volunteering, participation, international visibility and long-term community legacy. We have begun early engagement with Tourism NI and other partners and very grateful for the strong support to date. We also want to acknowledge the positive and constructive response from Minister Lyons in recognising the potential of this opportunity for Northern Ireland. Our engagement to date with the Minister and his department officials has been very positive and is greatly welcomed as we consider the next steps towards the World Cup in 2030. Again, it offers a unique opportunity to showcase Northern Ireland on a global stage and deliver lasting economic and social benefits. However, Belfast's ability to host is dependent on the redevelopment of Stormont Nixa site. Cricket Ireland has committed $1 million to the cricket facility within this project, underlying our readiness to partner in delivering this opportunity. With continued collaboration, Northern Ireland can fully realise the economic and social benefits of hosting on a global stage. Cricket Ireland and the NCU would be pleased to facilitate visits from members of the committee to local clubs or programmes in their constituency to see all of this work firsthand. And we want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. And we're very happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. And that's very useful to hear. In terms of the growth in women's sport and younger people, and indeed you've indicated there are some of the newcomer communities here, that's very impressive and I suppose something that there's huge benefit in. So I wonder, how are you going about that engagement, or are there lessons that other sports could learn, or how are you kind of attracting that type of engagement?
It's a very large strategic priority for Cricket Ireland and for the provincial unions, making sure that we are actually targeting and making spaces safe and accessible for people to come, but actually going out into communities and asking them to be involved in the sport versus the sport expecting communities to come into them. Callum, I don't know whether you want to...
Yeah, I mean, we've been working closely with our clubs. Cricket Ireland have designed a girls-specific programme in its wicket that our staff are going out and delivering in clubs to try and grow that base. We have to have competitions and a pathway for these girls from that base to go up into. And I think then at the top end, you have our senior women's side that are now a top 10 team in the world and performing on the world stage. So really the key thing for us is to create that sustainable pathway from girls in primary schools right through to international cricket.
Yeah, that's very good. And I have to say, I've seen strong evidence of that in the camp that you run, that rearranged camp that was run down there. You could see huge elements of that, and I think it really underlines the ability of sport to break down barriers and reach across barriers and get people just included and involved. So I think that's a really good direction and something to be praised. In relation to the redevelopment proposal, there's obviously multiple funding streams there, including DFC, Shared Island and Financial Transactions Funds. So in terms of you've an economic, a participation outcome there and community outcomes that you assert will be delivered in return for that investment, how will you be able to monitor and assess the effectiveness of all of that as we work through that process?
I guess World Cups and what comes with World Cups and local organising committees, there's a lot of research and I suppose reporting that is done around it. To give you some idea of scale, 2019 England hosted a World Cup and there was 46 million generated from the bed nights and 65 million direct economic impact on London. So all of that will be monitored and managed through, I guess, the World Cup Legacy Programme and the ETPL, the European T20 Premier League, incoming from 2027 onwards, will be able to start monitoring through partnership and collaboration across the agencies, tourism and I, to start understanding what that economic benefit and the social impact benefit is through these kind of larger scale events.
Okay, thank you. So we have quite a few members indicating, so we'll get straight to that. We've Sean, Morris, Kelly, Mark, Cathy and Melissa in that order. So members, please go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed the start of your presentation. It's lovely to see you in person, Liam. Around the 2030, what specific upgrades are required at the Stormont Pavilion to meet those ICC World Cup standards? If you could, do you have any idea of what's actually needed there?
So it will be redevelopment of the pavilion, so changing rooms, media rooms, but also indoor training facilities as well as a key requirement from an ICC competition. Teams need to be able to train if the weather is sometimes bad. So that would be the main, from a cricket perspective, that would be the main things is the pavilion and the indoor facility. There's no major groundworks from the cricket pitch perspective. So I think the good thing for us is that would still be able to be utilised in the lead up to 2030.
Supporting infrastructure
it's supporting
around.
Infrastructure.
What's the
it.
latest that capital investment would be needed to be able to fulfil obligations if it were to host?
Ideally, it would finish by July 28, which would give us time to use the facility and then run a smaller scale event in 29. So it's actually May 26 to get the final planning and detailed plans generated, and then a procurement process for building to start in January 27, I think. So it's about 18 months, I think, a facilities upgrade.
Right, and then in terms of the funding streams that are currently available and those that are currently unavailable, can you give a bit of an outline of I suppose, of where those conversations are? I know that obviously yourselves have committed £1 million. What level of investment are I suppose, are you seeking or are unavailable potentially because of the Shared Island?
So there's a DFC 1.5 million, which is through business case and in positive indications. NICSA would be 1 million. Cricket Ireland is 1 million, and then I think the remainder, what we're looking for is to unlock the Shared Island funding, which is about 3.6 million, which we are positive and hope for, I suppose, good news on that with support.
But it would need the others to be in place before it would unlock Shared Island?
It's actually Shared Island that is that remainder 3.6 million, which is now the waiting game. Everything else, I believe, is ready to go.
Okay, that's useful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Morris?
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thanks for your presentation, and congratulations on increasing participation in the sport. When you talk about the Northwest Credit Union or Cricket Union, people in here talk about the Northwest to mean London, Derry and Strabane, but I like to refer to the Northwest as Coleraine. But Coleraine seems like a sideline, so I would like to see your plans for Coleraine somewhere along the line. But look, I commend what you're trying to do, and I have no hesitation supporting it in principle. Subject to a facilities plan, what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, etc., etc. I think it's exciting. I like to see sport grow. I'm a great believer in facilities, no matter what they are. No sport can grow without facilities. And if you provide facilities, you get an increase in interest, an increase in participation, and all of a sudden it takes off. So I'm with you on what you're trying to do. As far as the economic benefit to Northern Ireland would be from hosting the competition, could you give me an outline of the economic benefits?
Tourism perspective, bed nights, obviously incoming, but also with World Cup, the funding that goes around it from, say, a venue hiring would be quite substantial. You're talking about hundreds of thousands for a venue fee from ICC, which would go directly back in. Again, it's all the tourism, your commercial eyeballs. So from a stat perspective, the 2023 World Cup was watched by 16 billion people. The next on that scale is 7 billion for the Champions League. So huge amount of eyeballs. The trade opportunities through engaging with India, obviously the new trade deal we can help and assist in those relationships. Cricket is a love language in India, and we can certainly make sure that we're facilitating those conversations and using sport as an avenue to open conversations from a Northern Irish perspective.
You, Chair. Part of the problem we have here is multi-sport use, especially when it comes to council facilities. It's not feasible for a council to build a cricket pitch, a hockey pitch, a football pitch. They're usually all multi-sport. What is the downside to using multi-sports facilities in council areas where the council have provided that multi-sport facility? How do you compete with, say, football, all the rest of the sports?
I suppose it's difficult to compete just based on the popularity and the relationships some of the bigger sports have with councils. We are trying to do a bit more work with Belfast City Council to create a joint management board, much like the GAA have had over the last 10 years. Elaine references to Mollusk, which is a shared space, and we have 7 new clubs, relatively new clubs within the last 10 years using that space. We need to try and expand that, invest in that to improve those facilities. We have the Murray Cricket Club at Fullerton Park, who have now 5 teams up from 2 teams. And unfortunately for them, just based on minimum standards, they'll have to play all of their games, their first 11 games, away from home this next season based on safety. So it's really important that we develop those facilities. But in terms of the shared space, I think cricket works quite well. You know, at stage 1 of us implementing a cricket facility is putting an AstroTurf mat, and sometimes that can work in between a football pitch, in between rugby pitches, GAA pitches. So I think it can work with shared spaces.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Kelly?
Thank you very much. This morning I had caught it on Facebook where we had the report about Niamh Lowry from Dundrum doing very well, hitting 100. They're on tour in South Africa, I believe, so I was all very excited by that. Unfortunately, Dundrum is not coming into my constituency area, but good luck to her. Guys, I've raised this before in this committee about the fact that you do have a summer sport. We think about, the potential of T20, but then I always bring it back down to grassroots level. And you're very aware that last year in my constituency there were issues over children playing cricket together, which was unbelievable. And thank you so much for the work that you did here at Stormont, bringing all those children together. Has there been any movement with Sport NI about the timing of grant funding that's suitable for summer sports such as cricket?
We're still working through that at the moment, so we've no indication. Well, we have some indication of our other funding will be for 2026, but I think the process is still in evolution, but we haven't had, I suppose, firm communication over what that looks like going forward. Multi-year funding would really support our ability to do more. The short turnaround times between receiving funding indication in April or confirmed funding and being able to roll out in that calendar year is a struggle. So we would welcome the multi-year funding approach.
I know that's something that we've a colleague, David Honeyford, that has been pushing for years about a rollover fund, say like £2 million that was constantly rolling so that summer sports could apply and make use of that in a much more effective way, rather than finally getting word that you've received your funding in maybe the autumn or winter and then having to have it spent by the end of March. The other thing I want to ask you then is about the World Cup. Absolutely fantastic potential, and I know one gentleman, at least 2 gentlemen who are related very closely to me, who will be begging for tickets left, right and centre, if not glued to the television the whole way through. Is there anything about commercial sponsorship that would be excluded from the T20 or anything? Because I'm very aware, when you think about the Open and the beds and the hotel spaces and the benefits, is there anything there that gives opportunity, or can that not happen because of the way that the funding for the upgrades will happen?
I suppose from the commercial perspective, around the World Cup, they would have, like, within ground, that would be very protected, and whatever brands are linked to that. But from a city perspective, there wouldn't be. I don't think there would be no caveats about how and what you do.
So in the physical grounds where the matches are being played, there obviously would be other commitments there, but there's other things that could give people opportunities. Because I'm just thinking the potential, and we have so many cricket fans in Northern Ireland, honest to goodness. My father, you lose him for days on end whenever there's matches on. But I'm just thinking of the potential for that youth development that you have been working so well on. If there's anything there that, if it's not through government funding or other funding pots, if commercial entities can come in the back of that. Obviously be careful with the type of sponsorship that you would maybe have for kits and things for children, because connections to drink or something like that. But I'm just wondering if there's anything there.
It will definitely generate an awful lot more interest in cricket, and as will the European T20 Premier League from a Northern Irish perspective of having businesses. Again, it's the eyeballs of what you can get overseas will be really lucrative from a commercial partner perspective, and it does definitely open up conversations that we probably haven't been able to have before from a monetisation of the sport perspective.
And for the T20, obviously you're waiting on that last wee bit, I'm saying millions of pounds of funding, but has there been any discussions so far with tourism here to see how they're going to help to support?
We had a meeting back in November, early December, and are very, very supportive, and we would, I think the ideal would be that we'd have a multi-agency working group as soon as that we get all of this confirmed, to be able to make sure that we're maximising and leveraging appropriately for best chance of success and visibility.
Oh, wonderful. Good luck with it all. I look forward to hearing success with this last wee bit of funding.
Thank you, Kelly. Mark, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to Elaine and Callum. Shane had asked largely what I was going to ask there on the requirements at Stormont to host these World Cup games potentially, which is hugely exciting, and it's an opportunity. We can't afford to drop another opportunity like that to host a global event. But it is imperative, you've outlined there, Elaine, when you'd like to be in or have a green light for, it's important, I suppose, that you get certainty around these funding decisions as well as early as possible, and before the run rate required creeps up too high, it'll make it harder then to get. You'd mentioned there from the North West Cricket Union perspective, a dearth of facilities up in this part of the world. I'm here as well. I was wondering what role yourselves would have as an organisation in terms of supporting new clubs, maybe helping them get established and I suppose stake a claim somewhere to get somewhere to play and somewhere that they can call home, because I know the lack of that permanent home address, if you like, prohibits clubs then from entering particular competitions.
So Catherine Ruff is the CEO of Northwest Cricket, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, who would work very closely with the Derry Strabane Council and surrounds and works to ensure that there is facilities. I know that any support that she can get to help that. She's only in role maybe 3 to 4 months, so very new in the space, but has previous sports experience and council experience in the region. And Catherine would be very much the on-the-ground driver. What Cricket Ireland can do is come in and support on those and I suppose showcase what is coming and what the potential is. So even if the World Cup, if the matches would be based in Belfast, there's still a huge amount of warm-up games, training facilities that will be required. So it is actually region-wide benefit and a region-wide need to make sure that we have enough venues and grounds to be able to facilitate team trainings and accommodation.
Thank you.
My own experience of engagement with the council around trying to identify sites or potential pitches is that there's almost a fear factor, and I suppose it's indicative of the litigious society that we live in today, that the ball could go here it could go there. Would you have a role even, I suppose, in trying to allay concerns of councils? There's also, I
Briefly,
think,
please, Mark.
sometimes extortionate or disproportionately high costs maybe quoted for things where an astromat could be used that Callum would refer to. How much would one of them cost, for instance, Callum?
Yeah, I mean, Dunmurray's a prime example of that at Fullerton Park, where they have installed AstroTurf mats there over the years. Now, unfortunately, because they've been embedded into the ground, they've been vandalised. So the new technology that we're recommending that is a lot cheaper is actually to lay concrete down, that we can have a portable AstroTurf mat that is rolled out, that the club can bring out and use it for their fixtures and then bring back. Therefore, it won't be vandalised, and it's a lot cheaper. The early work that we've done on that, it's only about £5,000 compared to perhaps £10,000+ to embed an AstroTurf mat on the ground.
Hey, Mark. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Cathy?
Thanks, Chair, and Kelly, you keep your hands off the rest of South Down. You're getting enough of it going into Strangford, so we're keeping Dundrum. But one area that you do have going into Strangford is Drummondess, and I'm from Drummondess, and we have a fantastic cricket team and a whole ethos around cricket in Drummondess with the Drummondess Super Kings, who I think it was in 2020 amalgamated with the Belfast Super Kings. And from that, I have seen firsthand how, just the fantastic impact that this has on a community. We've had a whole new community actually moving into the village. We've seen excellent partnerships with the local school, with the GAA club there, with the soccer club, actually shared facilities at times with the soccer club. So I've really seen that kind of social impact and how it can create that whole idea of inclusion. You mentioned something there around, and I kind of missed it, around SEND schools and some programme. Could you give us a wee bit more information on that?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, Drummondess Super Kings are a really positive example. Much like Ards and Cttee, Lauren Cricket Club that work with their local council, that they get a lease for the ground. They have the autonomy to develop the ground themselves. You'll be aware of Drummondess Super Kings having the Olympic Legacy Fund currently active and trying to invest and develop that new practice area. So they're doing a great job. In terms of our SEN delivery, this really started about a year ago in partnership with Cricket Ireland and the Lords Taverners. We delivered in about 10 SEN schools throughout that year, and we were fortunate enough to have 7 of those schools, 150 kids at Nixa a couple of weeks ago, where we delivered our first ever table cricket event. We certainly see our role in providing cricket and opportunities for everyone at different stages of development, abilities, ages. Cricket was probably a bit too traditional years ago, where we just delivered to one demographic, and we want to actively move forward. Off the back of that, we've been working with Disability Sport NI to start our Inclusive Sport Award. We are piloting a visually impaired cricket programme in the next couple of weeks, and as Elaine set out, that we are starting a master's programme as well.
Brilliant. That's also positive. In terms, just and again on the Drummondess Super Kings, like I know they have got ferocious leadership within their structures there. I know them well, and they are constantly fighting for funding. They're constantly fighting for their piece of the pie. And I have to hand it to Newry Morning Down Council. They are always forthcoming where they can be and have that great partnership there. Just on that whole inclusion piece, and I know the chair mentioned around women's participation, and again in Drummondess there's a fantastic group there who are getting themselves involved in the coaching aspect of it as well, and that learning. They're playing themselves, but also that, and I know the programme within the GAA, I think it's the Gaelic for Mothers and Others that we've seen pop up, and that whole social aspect of it. Is that something the clubs are doing naturally themselves, or is that something that you guys are getting involved in? And I suppose that inclusion around newcomer children and things like that, which again we've seen so clearly in Drummondess, is that naturally growing from clubs themselves, or is it something that you guys have an input into?
Probably two-pronged, I think. It does happen naturally by osmosis, but actually we are being really strategic and targeted about providing clubs with toolkits to make welcoming spaces, and what that looks like, and considerations of cultural competency and how that works. We're actually going to pilot an education programme for captains and clubs of all leagues and structures this year across Ireland about active bystander cultural competency and understanding differences in communities and how you bring that together and use sport to play in a really safe and confident environment. So clubs do it really well. We want to make sure that we're supplementing it and supporting the change in demographic and making sure we're part of that conversation and creating a really nice playing environment for everybody to engage in.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to have to move on then to Melissa.
Thank you, Rolf. You're all very welcome. Again, too, that I'm from the northwest, Castlederg, and I remember in my own youth it was. I couldn't say it was actually a cricket club, but there were people who played cricket, and they played on the grounds of a local controlled primary school at that time. And they would have roped us in then, even to participate in the game and that. So I do think of the strategy in terms of, we'll say, including young people from the outset, would be very, very important there. And of course, we're just right next to Sion Mills, where there was a very famous victory over the West Indies. 1969, I think it was.
69, yes. Yeah, we celebrated last year. Yeah.
And say it was something that they still talk about in our part of the country. If cricket comes up and all, But sadly, I'm not that sure there's even a cricket club now in Sion Mills.
It did close for a while, and it is back operating. I think very challenging at the moment from a financial data. I had a couple of incidents of vandalism, but they have got support from both the Northwest and Cricket Ireland to make sure that they can keep going. They did have access issues for a number of years, but fortunately is back open and they have started playing, which is fantastic.
That's good to know, and particularly even in terms of their grounds and that as well, because there was difficulties there too. I do know that. You've alluded to the Northwest structure, and then the All-Ireland structure as well too. That includes, I'm sure, what Donegal, Monaghan and Cavan then as well as part of your structure. And what do you see as the benefits of that, being on an all-Ireland basis?
Yeah, we run all-Ireland competitions, which are, I think, the highlight for all clubs. I think last year we ran our Irish Senior Cup final, which is the Men's Premier League final in Breedy Cricket Club in Magermason. All right, Magermason, yeah. Which saw a Dublin club and two Dublin clubs actually playing in Derry. So the travel, the engagement is really, really important from a cricket perspective, and it has a really strong heritage of all-Ireland engagement.
And with the all-Ireland structure as well too, does that actually give you greater access, say, to funding?
So it does a little bit, which we can deliver cricket across the board, Yeah, we do have strong support from both Sports Northern Ireland and Sport Ireland.
Thank you, Pam. Thanks,
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be quick. No, push your time. Thank you both, Elaine and Callum, for your presentation today. I just really want to congratulate you on clearly doing a superb job. Clearly your outreach is working with the huge increase in women and girl participation, and also very much welcome your outreach towards SEN schools as well. All the best for 2030 for the World Cup. I wish you every success, and I hope all those funding applications come rolling in thick and fast, and you can get cracking with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you, and really appreciate the information. I think it is really an interesting line. I think the more sport, I agree with Morris, the more sport, the more facilities we have, the more we encourage participation. GAA or soccer or whatever is not for everyone, and the more offering, and indeed many people are playing multiple sports and enjoying multiple sports at different times of the year. I called in with Caledon, we're playing the other day a soccer game as I was leaving, and I called in, and like the half of the soccer team are also in the Gaelic team, So there's a huge crossover and huge potential in that. Am I right in thinking, I didn't know that Cyan Mills is still talking about Sri Lanka and West Indies in '69, but am I right in thinking that the highest audience level ever for a sporting event was a cricket match in which I think Ireland were involved?
Ireland, India, yeah.
What was the figure for that?
Oh, you're totally putting me on the spot.
Well, actually, I think I'll check it with you. I think it was 140 million.
It was something. Yeah, there was definitely.
We're watching live.
Yeah,
we're watching live on that event, so it shows you the power. The power of, and that was a game that Ireland were involved in. So thank you for that, and we appreciate your briefing today. Thank you very much, and we wish you luck. We will come back to some actions after both these briefings, and we'll pick up on some of that from your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, members, I think we'll go to hockey, get the briefing from hockey, and then we can see if there's anything further we want to pick up on.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll move then to item 11, which is Ulster Hockey Facilities Review, and we're hearing oral evidence from Ulster Hockey. The briefing paper, members, for the agenda item is at page 497 of your meeting papers. So we'll wait till we get members into the room. Thank you, Cttee.
They were.
Okay, thank you. So members, we're now welcoming, and before I introduce the members, I'd like to thank the officials for attending today and appreciate your rescheduling previously to accommodate the committee. Really appreciate that. So I'd now like to welcome Mark Scott, who's Chief Executive of Ulster Hockey, and Dr. Shirley McKay, MBE, OLY, who is Head of Talent and Pathways. So, Mark, I think it's yourself maybe who's going to make a brief opening statement, and then we'll go straight to questions from members. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do the opening statement. Shirley's got the credentials, but I'll sort of start. Yeah, look, thank you for having us along today and affording us a little bit of time. I suppose the key focus of what we want to talk about initially is just to highlight the real positive growth of the sport of hockey and the impact that we're making, and really the significance of the sport across the region. And then we'll maybe speak about a couple of the limitations and issues that we have that are impacting on that ability. But I would say traditionally the sport has been quite modest, and I don't think over the years hockey's really shouted and articulated its significant size and scope in the region. This was sort of nailed home to me a few months ago when hockey was referred to by a senior sports development lead in the council, who I won't name, as a minority sport. Yet the figures that we have would suggest hockey's actually the third largest sport from a participation perspective in Ulster, and probably the largest female sport. So that kind of goes home, well, are we not articulating correctly? So we have a trend at the moment of increasing participation year on year at club, senior school and primary school levels, the three key areas that we're working in. That sort of looks like we've got more teams entering our leagues on an annual basis. We're adding schools competitions all the time, with more schools becoming involved. This year we've just recorded a record number of primary schools involved in our mainstream primary school event, and this has been fed in through a schools outreach programme that we're currently doing, trying to get schools in non-traditional hockey schools playing. And that particular programme, we're at full capacity in terms of delivery at the moment, and we're only touching the sides in terms of demand. Off the field, we've recently implemented a leading youth forum, which we've integrated into the organisation. We're about the only sort of organisation in Ulster that actually has youth forum members represented on our key strategic committees. But from that group, we've already seen at least 3 of those members translate into being full-time Ulster hockey staff. And we have run a sort of real leading, first of its kind CPR and EED awareness programme called At the Heart of the Game, which came out of that youth forum and reflects well on that member. We don't just stick to our traditional roots, we do quite a lot of successful community outreach programmes. Recently we've done some stuff in partnership with Ulster Uni, ethnic minorities in sport Northern Ireland, and diverse youth, really trying to diversify and to provide opportunities for various different members of our communities. Alongside that, there's been a successful delivery programme in special educational needs schools. I think the sport of hockey hasn't really lended itself to physical disability, but in terms of the intellectual disability, we've probably got quite a strong product, which works very well. And we've got a real growing engagement cross community-wise in conjunction with the GAA. So we are trying to work, across our entire community. Shirley would lead the talent programme that we have, which is quite an effective programme. At the moment, more than 50% of the players in our national performance programme for Ireland are coming from Ulster. At the Paris Olympics, there was a higher representation of hockey players than any other sport from Northern Ireland. I think there was 10 in total. And we're one of the very few sports who actually delivers an actual dual pathway, allowing our athletes to represent GB or Ireland. And the current captains of both of those teams in Paris were from Northern Ireland, and I'm just informed 3 out of the last 4 captains of the ladies team have been from this region as well. So that's just an overview of what we're doing. There's a whole host of other bits and pieces that I'll have missed. Our mindset is that we have to take responsibility for growth ourselves. We're not sitting with the begging bowl out all the time saying we need funding to deliver on our ambitions. And we're looking to try and find as many ways within our own responsibility to grow the sport. We do have ambitions that far outweigh the amount of public funding which is made available to us, but that's fine. We're quite comfortable with that because we realise it's our responsibility to really deliver and take responsibility ourselves. So recently we've really sought to continually grow our income through diversification of grants. So a few years ago I think we got Sport NI grant and one council grant. We now get 4 or 5 from different places. We've taken a real clear business-based approach to our service delivery, so anything we're doing for our members, etc., and our affiliation. So whilst sports development sits as a key of everything we do, we still have to take a responsible approach to ensure that we're financially viable in doing that. And we're also growing a very successful business network initiative called Club 1896, and we would project in the coming weeks and months. We've been operating that for 2 years. And it's really been enhancing our profile, but we're now starting to see a more financial return on that, and we think that'll help us with sponsorship and links into the corporate world. However, that said, we do tend to be inhibited by certain issues around our co-funding and around a lack of facilities and facility investment in general. Now, I know, because I bumped into them in the corridor, the guys from cricket were in before me, and I'm sure they're facing very similar issues, so we know we're not alone in this particular scenario. But at the moment, to give you a thought, we can argue that we're about the 3rd biggest sport in various terms. However, we are the ranked 15th in terms of Sport NI investment at this point in time. But I suppose our other key issue with Sport NI is that the focus could be more impactful, and at the moment we've been going from year to year on an annualised funding programme, and that inhibits our ability for long-term funding, long-term planning and stability within the staff team. Our biggest inhibitor, however, is facilities, and I think we have to be mindful that hockey is an expensive sport in terms of laying pitches and in terms of developing pitches, so we're fully aware of that challenge. We're also aware that through the Your School, Your Club programme, hockey's come out not too badly. So that's not incorporated in the report really that was initially sent around, but we're aware of 4 or 5 planned pitches coming out of those. However, in certain areas we still have significant and potentially existential problems. So only in the last few weeks the pitch in the Foyle Arena has been repurposed and it's been lifted. And we have one club operating there who now are struggling to actually facilitate their current operations, never mind any potential growth that they're looking to do. In Bangor, there was damage to the pitch, and we're now at least sort of 12 months on, and despite repeated sort of promises of when that pitch is going to be developed, and I think the pitch has arrived actually, the kit, and it's been lying for 3 or 4 months and nobody's sort of got around to laying it. So that's one of our biggest clubs in terms of size, who are having to basically beg, steal and borrow pitches in the North Down area. We have a club in Enniskillen called Enniskillen, but they've not played in Enniskillen for years. They actually play in 5 Mile Town. And for a smaller club in a rural area, that could basically kill them off if you think that, you know, your players are having to travel that distance just for training. And that's replicated maybe in Portrush and other areas. And then almost one that's a good issue to have, Ballyclare. There's a fantastic pitch. But there's too many clubs trying to use it. So there's clubs and teams who are getting a third of a pitch to train, and that's the most they can do. So that's just an overall overview. There's a whole host of other things. So generally the issues tend to relate to access to schools' facilities. Most of our pitches are behind the school estate gates, but sometimes they don't have floodlights. Sometimes you don't access the changing facilities or toilets. Often, the times to get in are restricted. And I know, as I say, your school, your club is seeking to redress that. But we also have overall issues.
Briefly, please.
Oh, sorry, nearly.
We get a manner's question. I'm sure there's.
Some council facilities don't open in time. They basically, the council facility closes before the pitch, and we have sort of issues there. So really, that's a kind of overview of where we are, and I think generally it means some of our clubs can't grow. Some of our clubs have got waiting lists, so it's unbelievable. We're turning women and girls away from the sport, and some clubs might sort of seek to exist. So really, that's kind of where we are. So there's a lot of good stuff going on that we're really proud of, but there are some barriers which are then inhibiting a lot of that growth, which we sort of seek you guys' help in trying to address some of them.
Yeah. Okay, well listen, I know that the committee have been extremely exercised and interested and involved around sporting issues. We see huge potential in it. In my own constituency last year we had a great lift for the town of Dungannon, where we had within a 1 or 2 week period the Swifts were in and actually won the final Irish League final. The hockey team were also in a final. They had previously won a final, and the rugby team, and they're all within sight of each other on the same road. So it just gave a huge lift, and also that idea again of engagement and involvement. I think a recurrent theme there for me before I come to members, Mark, is around the limited access to education pitches and the lack of floodlights and changing facilities. What meetings or conversations have taken place to secure a structured agreement with education councils and Ulster Hockey to maximise community use outside of school hours, which I know you've identified as an issue there?
Yeah, we have. I suppose a lot of the work that we do would be through the all-party group for sport, and I would sit as the chair of the sports forum, so we'd be heavily involved. We did meet with the Education Authority at that point, and I suppose the sort of response was that the Education Authority would tend to develop its facilities for curricular use and to meet the criteria for curricular use. But that didn't always include floodlights. So for a winter sport, that then means they're not available. We have had quite a lot of engagement directly with schools, sort of around times when they're going through developments, but often they tend to falter. So one example there was Devonish College in Enniskillen. It's been through a fantastic redevelopment, really good sports facilities in that particular school. And the head teacher even told me he felt they had too many grass pitches, yet they weren't being given the authority to build a hockey pitch at that time. So there's been quite a lot of engagement individually with schools. Following the development of the consultation report about facilities, we've shared it with councils, and we've been seeking meetings with sort of heads of sport and heads of council to really discuss the outputs that have come to see where we can plan with that.
Okay, thank you. Pam, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Good to see you again. It's just a quick question really around, kind of following from the chairs, around your engagement with local councils. Obviously that's really important because you're often using their pitches and you're everywhere in South Antrim, in my constituency with hockey, which is fantastic. But recently I've become aware of that grouping. I hadn't actually heard of it before now. I think I had actually forwarded a lot of your issues from your consultation to Antrim Newton Abbey Council in particular, and they didn't seem to be terribly aware of the issues, which I thought was a bit odd. So it's really, what engagement are you having with those local councils to ensure that the facilities are there and available at the right times, and that you have the right provisions around that, and also then that grouping, the Chief Leisure Officers Association. Do you have engagement with them? Are you speaking with them? I know that's like a more of like a Northern Ireland wide grouping in relation to these leisure services across the councils.
Yes, so in terms of the individual councils, we will identify specific areas that we'll go to. So we have a meeting scheduled alongside Priorians up in Derry, Londonderry next week to sort of try and address some of the issues around the Foyle Arena. We've actually tried to have conversations with Antrim and Newton Abbey, and interestingly we're not getting much of a response. However, since we met, I am aware that the floodlights at the Antrim Forum have been replaced. So maybe our meeting has sort of started to filter through, and I know it's taken about 10 years for that to happen. We were also recently in Downpatrick. I know there's plans for a redevelopment down in that area. I think it's in the Langley area. So we're meeting with councils alongside the clubs as much as possible. Now, prior to Christmas, I was invited to a CLOA meeting, but for various reasons that was postponed. I think there was a storm that day, and I don't think it's been rescheduled. So we're more than happy to go along to those meetings to present the wider. But this report has been circulated now to the local authorities to highlight the areas that we've had raised with us from the clubs in each of those areas.
Well, that's good to know, and I suppose just as a follow-up, if you need my assistance in terms of that locality, I'm happy to help bridge a gap if you're having difficulty getting in touch with each other.
And we're also aware that most of the councils have gone through sort of pitch strategies. Most of them were probably developed around sort of 17, 18, 19 sort of time, and very few of the councils have actually been able to follow through on the wider multi-sport aspect of those. So again, we're raising that as much as we can. But again, it's against the backdrop that we know hockey pitches are fairly unique in terms of their use, and also quite expensive, so we've got to be mindful there too.
Yeah, I understand it's a challenge, but it's a good sport which I used to play very, very badly at school, but still enjoyed it nonetheless.
It's still better than I would have been.
Thank you, yeah. Thank you, Pam. So I'm going now to Sian, then Morris, then Mark.
As I admitted in our meeting, I also played it very badly at school, so yes, thanks very much. Really lovely to see you both. Delighted that Dalriada in my constituency, North Antrim, and I know there's been some issues in the Mid and East Antrim bit of North Antrim, but at least through your school, your club, there's some positive news going in there. But I'm just wondering, at the minute, are there areas that you are seeing where the growth of young girls playing the sport is being strangled? Is there a place there where it's just getting to a point where, because of the lack of facilities, you're seeing a limit to where growth of clubs is being compressed?
Yes, I would say we're actually particularly strong as a sport in the North Down area. We've got a number of clubs. However, even in that area where there's perception, we're very strong. There's a number of waiting lists. So Bangor, North Down, are both reporting back that they're turning a lot of players away. Donegal ladies as well, and they're all sharing a small number of pitches, and that was before the pitch in Bangor Aurora was unplayable. The other area, and I'll let Shirley come in if she's got additions on this one, the other area where we've seen a massive growth has been in the Causeway Coast and Glens area. Now, it's possibly an example where we have seen now a new pitch go in fairly recently at Coleraine Grammar, and I know the school are seeking to add floodlights fairly soon, but we're now running sessions up there, and I think Coleraine ladies are again turning players away because they just don't have enough pitch space. And that's the bit for me. I think there's a lot of sports struggle to grow the sport, whereas we're struggling to actually meet the demand for the sport, particularly women and girls. Shirley, I don't know if you've got any particular areas because you're more on the ground.
Yeah, I would add sort of highlighting the more rural areas for Mana. That sort of west of the ban, I suppose, so much untapped potential there. And I think we've seen in terms of the growth of our outreach in our primary school programmes, we've had 16, 17 teams enter a primary school blitz in 5 Mile Town, which is so unheard of and rare, but yet we wouldn't be able to facilitate those 16 teams if they said just tomorrow we want to join a club. We're like, well, we actually are at capacity in terms of where we can put you there. So that's the sort of what aligned to what Mark's saying around there is real untapped potential in those sort of more rural areas where we want to try and grow the sport and find those young talented girls and boys. It's just about having that facility and that club source, I suppose, to send them to.
Yeah, and I suppose for me, looking at hockey being that kind of largest female participation sport, and I think when we met it, you told me that it was the second most popular, third most popular sport in the world. Was that the...
Yeah, I think maybe Johnny would have told you that, yeah, because he looks...
Just because it's so popular in Asia and
yeah.
things like that. So things that you wouldn't necessarily associate. So there is obviously growth there. I want to pick up a wee bit on Pam's point around the local government kind of connections, Mark, if that's okay. You mentioned around pitch strategies and there being some kind of issue with them not being able to fulfil, I suppose, what they had initially set out to do 6 or 7 years ago. In terms of the pitch strategies, have you been engaged with councils around updates of the pitch strategies and the input then into what your needs would be?
Yes, we would tend to engage. They would usually do surveys, have consultation events that we would always turn up for. But I've also worked quite closely with it. It's generally the same consultancy that picks up on a lot of these. And I would generally meet with him. He always seeks hockey out specifically to have a one-to-one conversation. So I think if you see a lot of the strategies, there's almost a stock line really around hockey and some of the challenges from hockey. But yeah, we would always engage wherever possible in any local authority events.
Can I ask a really practical question? In terms of the pitch surface that you require for hockey, what is the best case scenario in terms of what is there and what other sports can play on that? So what's the multi-use benefits or potential?
Okay, I think a current hockey pitch, you can play football and GAA on it, but it's not a particularly good surface to try and play those sports on, but it can be done. You can, on the other hand, play hockey on, say, a crumb-based artificial sort of surface. You could also sort of double it up with sports like maybe tennis, etc. There's a different there's a range of pitches. You can have a sort of sand rest pitch to a certain specification, or you could have the water-based pitches that you see at a national level. They're expensive to run, and they're not a necessity within our league system. We don't need pitches of that standard at all. So we're just looking for a lower spec pitch, because I think most of what we're looking at here is facilitating the more participation level. I think we've got enough in terms.
There is potential for crossover.
There is potential for crossover. I'll let you add in.
The point is that on a traditional sand rest hockey pitch, you can play GAA, you can play football, you can play tennis, you can play cricket. Any outdoor sport could be facilitated on a hockey pitch. But if you flip that, you can't play hockey on grass. It's not suitable. You can't play hockey on a 3G sort of rubber-based synthetic pitch, which we're seeing sprouting up everywhere. So the ability to have a multi-sport use on a hockey pitch is far outweighs the opposite of that in terms of other pitches.
That's really useful, thank you.
And I'm just slightly aware that there has been, I think, a joint study between the FIH and FIFA in terms of trying to develop a new surface But I don't know what stage that's at the moment, but that would be a real sort of game changer for us in one sense, in terms of something that's very suitable for both.
Thank you, Mark. Morris?
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief all the time. Thanks very much for your presentation, and thanks very much for mentioning the Causeway Coast and Glens. I know the sports officer up there, Stephen McCartney, does a great job in hockey. And the growth of hockey in the Causeway Coast and Glens is a correlation of the new synthetic surface that went in at Rugby Avenue. And now we have another one about Coleraine Grammar. Previous to that, there were cinder pitches, and the sport, as you know, was struggling. But it's really taken off, and I'm really pleased about that. The problem I have with multi-sport use, you've alluded to it. A lot of different sports can play on a hockey surface. They're mostly sand-based, you know, it's like a sand, whereas the 3Gs are pebbles, and they're very hard to play on. And I wouldn't recommend anybody plays Gaelic or GAA or rugby on a 3G pitch because of the lack of gill and the quickness in the turn. You maybe hurt your ankles, and you know it's not a good surface. But the hockey surface can take those sort of training schemes, not necessarily games full-fledged. But if you had an ask and you could meet the councils, would you ask for standalone facilities which could accommodate, as we were talking earlier before you came in, cricket and sports like that? Now up in Rugby Avenue we have a 3G beside the hockey pitch, but it can't be used for hockey, as you know. And then there's also the pressure on space and time in a facility like that. It's open to the public and various sports. So if you had an ask when you were going to the councils, what would your ask be?
Yeah, interestingly, when we did the consultation, there was one reasonably small club in Belfast. When we said, what would you like? They said, oh, we'd like our own pitch and a clubhouse. And I'm still thinking, you don't, because you can't run your own pitch. So I think if we look at some of the more successful clubs, and Coleraine Ladies is a prime example, I think part of their success is being part of a wider sports conglomerate. So I think if you look at Harlequins in Belfast, Coleraine as a prime example, where you get 2 or 3 sports then built around a shared facility. So there might be a sports-specific area within the development, but the actual sort of clubhouse, changing facilities, all of that aspect becomes a shared facility. I think we see real success in that type of model. And I think what would be an ideal way forward for hockey would be, whether it's looking at existing clubs, finding rugby clubs, cricket clubs, GA clubs that a hockey club can maybe tie in with. You know, in a conversation I had with the guys at Priorians, they were saying they would love to double up with Cttee Derry Rugby Club and maybe cricket to try and develop something up there. So I think that is definitely the model. And as you say, I know the Coleraine area quite well, and I think that's a prime example of a successful club. And we were talking about Stephen on the way in,
Right.
that he's the reason why we need another 10 of them.
He's a real driver. But Chair, it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention Irish International, successful Irish International Katie Mullen from up our neck of the woods too.
Yes,
so.
good friend of Shirley's.
Good tour of the North, Morris, thank you. Mark, finally, and as briefly as you can, please, thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Mark. Good to see you again. Well, I will be brief anyway, Chair, because Morris kind of preempted what I was going to ask here, and it was particularly with Priorians in mind, and given that they're within my own constituency, and that was around the synergies that exist, or the potential for synergies or relationships between hockey clubs and clubs of other codes, and how you can maximise the benefits of that. Just Mark, you said you're coming up with Priorians. I'd been going to ask what you do to support clubs in that situation, so glad to see you taking that hands-on approach. But at a political level, now I've been contacted by some constituents on this, but haven't received official correspondence from the club. But if there's anything required, certainly give us a shout. I'm sure all parties will be happy to help.
Yeah, certainly. I only met with the committee of Priorians last week, and, you know, became aware of just how problematic the issue was. So we are meeting the council, scheduled, I think, on the 19th of February, and certainly we're going to come in behind the club in terms of contacting political representatives and the council to really push. But I'm waiting to see the outcome of that meeting to see what we're actually sort of shouting about. But certainly that's a direction we'll go in.
Okay. Yep, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So listen, that's been another useful focus on sport, I have to say. Can I just check, Shirley, am I right in thinking I think you're certainly Ireland's highest capped individual. Is it the case that you are the highest capped individual for any sport that you hold that very unique distinction? Well, that's fantastic now. So I hope I'm going to bring that up.
I know, it's just...
I'm not sure if you can count this as another cap, but I certainly do appreciate having such a record in front of us. It's really, really fantastic. And thank you for all the work you're doing to promote your sport and promote that engagement and participation. It's really something that we're very keen to see, and appreciate your attendance here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for having us. Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you. Okay, members. So in terms of follow-up actions, and I'll just come to members with any other thoughts, but one of the things I think is clear, we've heard from cricket and hockey today, we've had recent queries in relation to funding for disabled sport, Deaf Olympics, and the closure of the outdoor centre at Tullymore has come up, and there's a range of sporting issues around there. Is it timely for us to seek an update from Sport NI? And maybe point towards the issues that have been raised in advance of that meeting, but to do a broader meeting with Sport NI in relation to sport more generally. Yeah. Would members agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Just before you move on, they talked about sports sharing there. One of the biggest sport growths at the minute is youth football, and that can be played in a hockey surface. So they could add that into their ask. You know. Yeah.
I think in relation to cricket and the World Cup, I think these events are key events, and I think it would be great if whatever can be done to facilitate World Cup games in terms of cricket would be a real. And I think would members agree that we support that ambition?
Mm-hmm. Chair, I think anything that we can do to encourage the shared island engagement with Cricket Ireland in terms of that World Cup would be incredible. So I don't know whether it would be possible, Clerk, for us even to ask the Minister what engagement he's having with Shared Island, or just even to understand where the department can maybe put a wee bit of pressure on as well in terms of that engagement. That would be really good.
In relation to the completion of that pot of funds for that event.
Yeah, members. And whenever we get that response back, maybe it would be appropriate for this committee to write to those who administer the Shared Island funds to actually, I suppose, back the...
Underline our support.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, members content with that? Yeah. Any other actions, members? Or okay, members, then can we move on to agenda item 12, Forward Work Programme, a copy of which is page 540. Do members have any comments, or are you content to note the Forward Work Programme? No. Thank you. Agenda item 13, any other business? Do members have any other business they wish to raise today? No, thank you. Agenda item 14, date, time and location of next meeting. Our next meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Thursday 19th of February 2026 in room 29 here in Parliament Buildings. Thank you. The meeting is now adjourned and we just take out of broadcasting. Thank you, members.